All right, well, let's start the recording because you know I have a habit of forgetting that. Hey, Roger. Hey, William. Great to have you here. Gonna have a full call today. I'm excited. I've been having several side conversations with you today. We're gonna elaborate a little bit more because this week is Leads Week, as David posted yesterday. Leads. For those of you just joining us, there's obviously some foundational work, but you know what we're going to talk a little bit about today after celebrations is the fact that even when you're just starting, lead generation has to be a part of your operation. So we've got to get some habits built and some resources shared and start getting you guys to think outside the box in regards to leads because they don't come to you on their own. So we'll get, hey Tweed, great to have you here. Looks like we lost a few, they were here and then we've lost a few people. So, all right, guys, top of the hour to you, top of the day, afternoon to you, morning, I guess, in my part of the country. So great to have you guys all on the call. Rad, great to have you here. Looks like there's a few of you that are going to be finishing up this week. Some of you are just starting. Super excited. So let's do a little celebration. And in and amongst that, if you are brand new, I would love for you to give just a 30 or 60-minute elevator. Who are you? What are you here to accomplish? And what's special about you other than everything? So for those of you who are new, and then celebrations, and if any of you are exiting this week and this is your last week, if there are any parting words of advice or anything you'd like to share with the group, that's welcome as well. So let's start with celebrations. Who wants to go first? Oh, come on, guys. No celebrations? Nothing?
I'll go ahead.
All right, Brad.
I'll go. Oh, okay, somebody's already. I'll go next.
All right, Rad, then Neil, then Charles.
Okay.
All right. I feel like this is redundant because I talked to Teresa on a coaching call yesterday, but I crashed a leadership conference, and because I don't know if you guys are familiar with Quick Trip. It's kind of a big gas station chain around the Midwest. So they're very successful, and they seem to have very happy employees. So I wanted to go meet their PR director and ran up, and after he was done speaking, and asked him if he would do an interview for a new book I'm writing, and he agreed. So that was kind of a I'm not a very pushy kind of guy, so that was getting me out of my comfort zone. And he said yes, so that's little celebration is just that I have a door open there.
Fantastic. Yes, we did talk about that. And again, yet more testament to nothing happens without a conversation. So getting yourself out there and stepping up and having those and introducing all the different ways that we have to start those conversations. The ask isn't just for business. It isn't just for a sale. It's just for, casual conversation. Let's talk about your needs and my resource. And if we have a match, we have something to talk more about. But otherwise, let's just have that initial conversation. So, fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing that, Rad. Any closing words as you exit? I think this is Thursday's your last call. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I guess the biggest challenge for me personally is to take all this and implement and do action. I'm someone who always feels like I haven't quite learned enough or I'm not quite ready. But I think, one thing that Teresa's really driven home is that I don't know if you've said it this simply, but 90% of what I'm probably going to try is going to be failure. So that means I need to crank up how much I'm trying so that 10% wins are where I live. And maybe over time I can bring that up to a 20% success rate. But the bottom line is get out there and try the stuff you're learning here. I have a good base based on all the tools the program gave, and now I need to get out and just implement. So that would be my words of encouragement. The sooner you do it, the better.
Right. And let me just talk to the 90%. So success is, 90% success. Success comes in many different shapes and sizes. So if your goal is the only goal is get the sale and get the check, which of course ultimately is all of our goal always, but there are steps along the way, and that success this is why we celebrate the small wins. If you get in with the HR guy and you don't get a check from the HR guy, who else did you meet? What other insights did you gain? So 90% success, depending on how you define that success, will vary, right? So, that mental capacity, that psychology behind, am I being effective? Am I moving the needle forward? Am I making an impact in really generating new leads, even if I don't get a sale from the one I'm with right now? So be careful how you define success. And that 90%, I'm betting, I would put a milkshake on it, that you'll have better than 20% success. So implement consistency, persistence, and there's no reason you should fail. There are 7,500 and some odd meetings going on a day. You only need 1 or 2 a month and possibly a week, depending on your goals. So it's a great big field. Just go get them. So, and I'll share another nugget with you here in a few minutes. Who was next? It was not Charlie, it was Neil, right?
It was.
Go for it, Neil.
So you remember last time we were together, I told you I had an older event that I had booked for less money than I should be working for.
Yes.
But she offered to bring in her VP of Crisis Management. And he walked in on the workshop, but he walked in with the CEO of the company. And that led to a discussion and stuff that we were doing, and they were talking about that. And in the end, the CEO and I all had coffee together, and the CEO sent me an email this morning introducing me to 4 other of his CEO friends. So that conversation, that even though it was a cheaper job because it was booked under my old fees, it did give, like you say, nothing happens outside of conversation. But now I have an introduction from one CEO to his friends, and it was very kind, it was very encouraging, and it makes it a lot easier now to pursue those leads.
Good. And so then now it becomes a matter of not leaving money on the table and doing really, really deep discovery, making sure that you have a full understanding of whatever the next conversation entails, that you have a full understanding of what they need to accomplish so you can align accordingly, relevantly, right?
That's right. And like I said, I'm married to my fee.
Good job. There's the fee you ask, the fee you get, which leaves a little bit of room for negotiation. And then there's I don't get out of bed for less than number.
Right.
Who here has their I don't get out of bed for less than number absolutely ironclad in stone? Raise your hand just on the camera.
My hand's up, just so you know.
Yeah, for those of you who are on camera can raise their hand. Awesome, William. Good to hear it. Shawn, you didn't raise your hand. Okay, just making sure, just checking. All right, Matt's in there. Good job. Rad's kind of just kind of shy. Fred, how about you? I don't get out of bed number. Raise your hand. Oh, you're muted, hon. There you go. You're unmuted now.
Okay. Yeah, I was having some technical problems with this. I presume we're going over wins right now.
We are. Yes, we are. And Charles is next. I was just making sure you had your I don't get out of bed number ironclad in stone.
I was given a lead last week on a workshop opportunity with a company headquartered in Virginia Beach, and I wasn't able to make direct contact with the meeting planner, but I did leave her a voicemail, and she responded with an email thanking me, but saying that they didn't have it budgeted for an outside speaker to come in. They were looking for someone internally who would do it for travel expenses. Well, of course, that's not me. And I did respond to her email saying that when they do have a budget, when they do have a speaker budgeted, I'd like to have an opportunity to discuss what I can bring to the table. And I sent a follow-up email right after that. I said, by the way, my fee begins at $7,500. And that's something I would have never done before, okay? But I just put it out there. She responded to me saying, oh, that's good to know, thank you. So she could have not, so at least it's in her bonnet.
Absolutely. And we can get into this a little bit later, because one of the things, we don't have it budgeted for a speaker, but without really that deep dive into needs, you haven't really aligned yet as an advisor. There could be other needs that they would have a budget for training or consulting or something. So we can dive into that a little bit more later. But I just, again, always thinking of yourselves as advisors and not speakers, because speakers is one and done. It's a gig to gig to gig, and you'll die by the gig hamster wheel. You'll get hung up in the rungs. So any way that you can become that advisor and get deeper into the organization, while it might start with a speaking engagement, and that might be all they give you at first, always set the pace and set the tone for something deeper and greater that gives more transformation and allows you to be a true solution provider. Nothing happens in 60 minutes from a stage. I mean, maybe some perspectives, maybe some new tips and tricks, but at the end of the day, they're going to get back to their offices and go back to the regular gig. You know that, they know that. So acknowledge that out front and negotiate those deals out of the gate strategically, so you have a deeper impact in the organization. So when given the chance, Fred, you might not have had the chance. I'm just speaking in generally to that. So yeah, sure. Charles, you had your hand up next. You're next.
Yeah, the only thing that's really changed so far is it was a big thing. It's clarity of my message. I've really finally, I guess, put some blinders on to the distractions that have been around, and I've gotten clear on the message. And the result has been, I had a conversation with someone that we're doing the same type of work for another company. And we had a little bit of a conversation, and she brought me into federal government agency, and now I've got, I think this summer, 9 trainings scheduled. So, and my fee doubled in that engagement. So,
contracted, solid, signed on the dotted line.
Done. Yes.
Nice job.
So
way to go.
As you were saying earlier, the power of focus, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Doug, right? Power of focus. He's our resident focus guru in the group here, in addition to me. So yeah, and again, when you know who you're going after, and I might have mentioned this to some of you on your initial enrollment call, when you buy a blue car, guess what? Suddenly you see every other blue car on the road. Just like David talks about in the webinars, you got to find your red birds, that reticular activator that goes off in our head. Once we've identified what we want and who we want to go after, suddenly it's everywhere. And a perfect example is what David and I was on the webinar, I just wasn't live on the screen. David's last Facebook Live about the whole announcement with CNBC about Nike, and we're hiring new diversity people. We need to hire more women. Man, if you're in women's empowerment, even Lisette, we're working with Lisette to try to get her into Nike. If you have a relevant topic to whatever the news story is, and we're going to talk about that today too, about leads, man, if you know that's your target, simple. Now it's just a treasure hunt to figure out who to talk to and how to present that value. So you're exactly right, Charles. Focus is everything, and it is what makes you successful in every area of your business, not just lead generation and sales. But when you can focus, you're more valuable to your client, your content is sharper and more succinct and more impactful. Everything benefits with focus. So I love that. Great example. Who else has a success? Roger.
There we are. Well, Teresa, you talk about the trusted advisor, and I've talked with David about this in the group. Over the last year or so, I've been working with the city of Fort Collins, Colorado, and we've worked with their sustainability and their innovation work. And I got this call the other day from one of the folks that's there saying, I'm planning my next summit this year for innovation. I want to work on this and this and this and this. I don't quite know how to do it. Can you help me with that? And so that's really evolving nicely. And then the other thing I want to just say too, to the group is that when we worked together recently to work on the 2 pages on my website, as far as the customer focus, it has really sharpened things up and made things really, really focused. So thank you for that. So appreciate it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for that, Roger. Good work.
Thanks.
Doug, you had one.
Yes, Allison and I started sending out emails last year using the cold call template. We sent out, I think.
Last week, not last year, right?
last week. Feels like last year. Last week. So I sent 4 on Thursday. We sent 21 on Friday just to hit the 25 for the week. And today, we out of that, I think we had at least half of those responded to. We set up 3 calls. One was kind of by accident. I called just to find out who the person was, and they answered. But today was the first one that was scheduled. The topic that I put in there, I kind of made it up based on what I thought might be appealing to the insurance industry and to the real estate industry. I just called it how to avoid burnout, fallout, and topping out. And today's conversation was with an executive director. It wasn't a perfect fit because I come from the side of insurance where it's 100% commission, agency development, and recruiting, and so forth. And they're on the bank side, which is a very different animal. They're distributing insurance products through the banking system. So we just had a great conversation. And I probably won't be the fit for the keynote, but through this conversation, she said, would you be interested in being on a panel of experts around talent management and development? She really liked this concept of topping out, asked me what that meant. And so I talked about what that means, about how people get comfortable, and then when they're comfortable, they're also susceptible to be poached by other companies. So that's really interesting. So no results yet, but just being in that discipline of sending the emails, tracking the responses, setting up going for the conversations. Allison, we've got 3 set up on the books right now. One, we just asked for it. Allison just asked for it through a conversation on the phone, and they said sure and set it up for 2 weeks. We've got one scheduled this afternoon. So probably all in all, 5 conversations out of 30 emails in the last 2.5 business days.
I love it. Now let me get this straight. So let me see. You sent the email on the worst possible day of the week, traditionally,
Friday.
as people perceive, when the best time is to send an email.
Right.
You actually, you had the balls to send it on the worst day of the week, huh?
Well, we wanted to we didn't listen to the module until Wednesday, and we wanted to hit the 25, and it was already Friday. So we said, what the heck, we'll just do 21 today and see what happens. So, yeah.
And wait, let me get something else straight. You didn't the program you're pitching in this email, it doesn't even exist. You literally made up the title, put it in the email, and you sent it off. Is that right?
I made up the title based on pains that I know these companies experience that I can speak to. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So, and you literally just asked for the conversation?
Both of us did. Yeah, I asked for it mostly through email. Allison got on the phone, and when she found the right person, she asked for a conversation. She booked the meeting as well. Yes.
So all of the things that we would say, we can't do it because, you just proved is bullshit.
Well, so I proved that making progress is bullshit. Yeah, I mean, not making progress, that's bullshit, definitely. So I'm excited to prove that. I'm excited for the final proof of one of these turning into a contract. That'll be a wonderful celebration.
So one thing that I want to just point out, so that the conversation with the guy that you aren't the great fit for, that you might be on the panel, one thing that I would just say for future conversations that go that way, remember, are there any other organizations that you're connected to that you think this would be a good fit for? Number
Right.
2, are there any other events that you know of that would be more in line with what we're talking about here? And who can you introduce me to?
Great. That's very helpful. We've got a follow-up call scheduled in 2 weeks, so that's a conversation I can have at that time. And I also just want to add, I don't know if we lost him, but William Hung in the house. What? Wow. She banged.
Poor guy is never going to live that over.
Yes, I'm a fan.
The real William Hung is with us in case.
I love it.
William, do you want to be a star for a moment? He did raise his hand. He actually has a hand up because he has a success here next. So
awesome.
So William, it's your stage, my friend.
Okay. So how's everybody going? I got into professional speaking last year, and this year I'm looking to grow much more by being very specific, like you already mentioned, Teresa. And so far, you talk about celebrating success. I have 2 speaking engagements that I'm very close to closing, and I'm getting paid much more than ever before because David told me not to undervalue
Oh, you're breaking up a little, William.
myself.
Go back where you were. You're breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, I'm saying that I have 2 speaking engagements that I'm about to close the deal on, and
Fabulous.
I'm getting paid substantially more than ever before because David told me not to undervalue myself.
Yes, 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 yes. Now, I'll have you, now we're working on a completely different platform for Mr. William than what you all may have known him for. And so this is very exciting because just like many of you, you know, I think it's something we can believe that, well, if you've been speaking forever, then you have it all figured out and it's easy for you. Or if you've had success in the past, you know how to replicate it. It's just easy for you. That's crap. It is just as hard for William to start over from scratch, or Billy Arsman, or Libby Gill, or Karen Buxman, or any of the others we've had through the program who have seen substantial success in doing what they're doing, but they're pivoting, they're changing, they're shifting. And this mindset thing, guys, this mind meld we have you all in regards to shifting from me marketing to client-centric language and all of stuff feels like it should be way simpler than it is. Let me tell you, it's just as hard for William as it is for any of the other of you. So take stock that when we said to you, when this gets hard, because it will, this is the hardest part for many of you in this, like, what do I do? What do I want to be when I grow up? What problem do I actually solve? And specifically, how do I do that? And what does it mean for the client? And getting all that defined is the hardest part. Once that's defined, then it's fun. It's the stuff Doug's doing, and it's the stuff that Fred is doing, and the conversations, and then you're clearing, and what Charles is doing, and being clear and concise about communicating that, then it gets to be a lot of fun, and we'll make sales fun. One way or another, you guys, we are going to get making sales fun for you guys, because I'm determined to make it fun, because it is fun. I have 25 years in the biz. I know, it's fun. So anybody else with some successes before we move on to questions? Tweed, go for it. Cash, you're next. Oh, there we go. Unmute. There we go. We're having battling mute buttons.
No, I really, at this point, I know I'll have a question or two before the day's over, because I always do. But I must admit, I sit here and I just get so inspired and so pumped up with everything that's going on. Frankly, I needed that week last week to kind of pull my head together. And I slaved over that article that I sent you about the 4 commonalities. And then, of course, I'm glad you got the book. So now you kind of know where my head is. But it's been kind of an epiphany this week in that I believe I know now how I can take those 4 commonalities and turn them into something to where people can use it. Now, of course, I still have to make that transition out of just being a one and off to let's turn this into something good, something bigger and better. And I looked through the fourth video yesterday, and that was like, so many things were going off in my head. And I also watched the video that David put out about thinking bigger. And I think I've been my biggest enemy in that. Don't think big enough, because it's a long, complicated psychological thing about, well, maybe, growing up, you don't think you're good enough or whatever. But you know what? I'm a dad, so therefore I have no fear. And I've also been told that you're just too damn stupid to know when you're in trouble. But I love it there because every day's a new adventure. So, I mean, this project this journey we're taking together is just blowing my mind, because now I'm a Texan and I believe in possibility thinking. For Texans, I can just tell you right away, no is not an option. It just doesn't exist. They're how thinkers, not if thinkers. And I find myself being even more so now. So I just want to thank y'all for that, because it wasn't so much of a success. It's just like the lights are going on. Now, granted.
Oh, I think that's hey, what you sent me, you come a long way, baby. So, and we'll talk about that. The last part of that document that you labored over We're almost there. You did great work. You really are. So, you know, and I'll say, it's only just begun. Doot, doot, doot. Who else wants to
The
sing
way I
with
look
me?
at it, it's this way. It's that the light's going off. Now, granted, it's only 40 watts, but it's at least the light's on. So
Hey, you're doing great work. You're doing the right work, Tweed, and we're going to get you there. That's the main thing. And you're fully invested. That's all we could ask. And at the end of the day, like I said, this is a transition. But once it's made, it's all fire go. So you're going to get there. And you know, there's something very magical and amazing about being amongst other people who are bigger thinkers. It forces us to also think big and not slip back into that, okay, well, maybe I'll just go after the little guy and charge $1,000, and maybe I'll just play small. When other people are playing big, they give you the permission to play big as well, and that is as much a part of this group as it is the instruction and consulting to make the decisions around where you need to go.
I used to work at some really high-powered radio stations, and I noticed that whenever I went somewhere else, the level of the room just comes right up with you.
Absolutely.
If you
Absolutely.
operate there, that's your norm.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Tweed. Appreciate it. Cash, you were next, and then we'll go to Julie.
Yes, I want to
echo Shawn.
Fellow Texan Tweed's comments about possibilities. And for me, Neil in the group was a great inspiration about how he tripled or quadrupled his pricing. And I put it out there. And for the first time, I've been charging like $1,800 to $2,200 a day for training, $5,000 for a half-day workshop, $7,500 for a full day. I did the good, better, best pricing. Thanks to your coaching, when he said, if you're in the ballpark, you got this. And I pursued what was the ballpark. And so thank you very much, Teresa.
Did you get it?
I don't know yet, about to follow up, but yes, the fact that I did the proposal is a huge win for me. So. Got it.
And you did good, better, best. You didn't undercut yourself. They did, because he got an email that said, well, the budget's between 4 and 6, and he was going to go in at 3 something. I said, no. We show them value, and we get in that ballpark and beyond the ballpark because you got so much value. So nice job, Cash. Way to go.
Thank you.
All right, Julie.
Well, I had a very small win, but I'm calling it a win. I have nothing signed on the dotted line yet, but I had sent out some emails before I came on board with SPF, my favorite sunscreen. And we had our first call yesterday. It was a conference call with 2 of the people planning this meeting. And I did the consultant sell, which I wouldn't necessarily have started to do, but finding out first, before talking about myself, what their problems were, what they wanted to communicate, what issues they were dealing with long term. And then I was able to find, they actually used the word, here's what we struggle with. So we talked about their struggle.
Mufasa, say it again.
I know. And then they actually said that they have struggles outside of their own market. They have offices like they have 90 offices. And so I just know by what I presented to them, they said, we're very excited. It sounds like you could do that your presentation could be really powerful for our group. And they said, we need to huddle the 2 of us. They were in 2 different offices and they needed to talk. I did lowball because this was my very first ever asking for money. I know, but I'll get there. And I know that I'm going to be able to turn this into what can we do at your quarterly meetings, or how do we take this into other markets? And then
hang on, Julie. There we go. Not sure what happened. You got muted accidentally. I'm not sure how.
I played back for them all the things that they had said that they needed. And then I said, and I'm just going to pencil you in for that date, just as a reminder in case someone else asks me for that date, that I can give you the opportunity to say yes before.
Nice. How bad did you lowball?
I said 1,500.
Okay. That will be the last $1,500 gig you ever do, correct?
Yeah.
All right. What is your I won't get out of bed less than number?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I have that yet. I don't know that I've really, been able to say this is my, I mean, it was for an hour. It's for an hour and a half talk to 100 people. I mean, I was looking at it like, what is the cost per person that they're paying me? That's how I was thinking.
So going forward, I love the shakes of the heads around the
I know,
videos.
I'm seeing all that.
Hey, Julie's just new. Let's give her some room. Let's give her some room to grow. Let's support her in this. So your I don't get out of bed number should be, some said 3, I would say 4, and your regular fee 5 to 6. I mean, and leave some of that room between 5 and 6 to do some negotiations. So remember, and again, I won't go too deep in this because we've got some more successes, but your value is not rooted in the hours you spend. It's not rooted in what you think you can do or can't do. It is 100% in the outcomes you know that you can bring your client. And if your client is profiting, if they save money, quit risking money, if they add money to the top or bottom line, if they get more efficient, if they meet more deadlines, if you can make those kinds of things happen, that is valuable to them, and to the degree that they pay for it is in direct correlation to what you charge, or to what they've gained is what you charge. Does that make sense?
Yes. And
so your value no longer has to be about you, which is an amazing thing, because you no longer have to worry about, am I worth it? Because you absolutely are, because you produce those kinds of outcomes.
And those fees that you're all talking about, does that include travel?
Not usually. You're usually negotiating that on top of it. Your value as a consultant, advisor, and subject matter expert is what it is. And to get that there's some travel and lodging costs and additional fees. Now, some people will include it, but their fee is much higher. So there's all-in pricing where you can say, hey, here's my fee, and I also include travel, but that's 10 grand. Or it's 8 grand, or it's 7 grand, whatever you need to compensate for travel. So you're not nickel and diming, but I wouldn't recommend reducing your fee to make room for travel. Add it on, and then give them one price if that's more comfortable.
Okay.
So, but good job. I mean, you went in as a consultant. You're starting the pace. You're starting that habit of looking deeper than just the gig, which is fabulous. It's exactly where you need to be. Nice job.
Thank you.
Fees are easy. Just let a new number come out of your mouth. That's all there is to it. All right. I think we had a hand from Mark. Mr. Gordon. Oh, can't hear you. Still can't hear you. And you're unmuted. Shall we come back? All right. Let me see if there's any other hands. Any other hands that are not electronic? Shawn, go for it.
Hi. So my small win, I have a conversation tomorrow with an HR person who's a new HR person from a company that I've already done a training for. Training's over, and we have some follow-up work to do. Just kind of introducing ourselves. We've had one conversation. From that one conversation, I kind of built in tomorrow's conversation, because she said that they use David Allen, who is the Tony Robbins of my organization. They use David Allen, but they're thinking of maybe not using David Allen, that maybe they would look at my content and conceivably bring me in for future opportunities. So tomorrow I have the conversation. I'm going to kind of walk her through my content. And basically, here's what I do, here are the problems that I solve, and hopefully, I'm impressed that I'm just being compared to David Allen. So, like, we're in the same sentence, so.
I love that. I love that too. So for you, food for thought, for preparation for that phone call, or so number one, not what you do, but what they get, right? So
yeah, good point.
You might do it, but it's in terms of what they're getting, what the outcomes they can expect, all that.
Yep.
But additionally, I'm assuming you know quite a bit about this Doug Allen.
Yeah, David Allen.
David Allen.
Yeah.
And you can discern differences.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Okay.
I mean, you got to be a student of the game. Figure out as much as you can about him, what he's offered, and where you differ, and add more value.
Okay. Great.
So because they've already told you, they're comparing you, that you've got to either meet or exceed, hopefully exceed.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to demonstrate what that is that you
Okay.
do differently that has more value to them.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Great advice.
Absolutely. All right. Mark, we got sound yet? Oh, now he's frozen. Shoot. Well, at least he didn't have his tongue sticking out or anything. All right. Any other celebrations? We'll come back to Mark and celebrate with him if he has it after he reconnects. Any other celebrations before we move on to questions? We're at the half-hour point, so we should probably move on. I love that you guys have all of these amazing. Yes, Susan?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you, I struck gold when I was just doing some research. I found out in a medical journal, there's a brand new term called wealth shock for people who lose 75% of their income in 2 years because of problems, you know, with the elderly. So I was just blown away that came from my own profession, even though I'm branching into the whole financial profession. So just encouraging everyone to just, you know, read your newsletters and see how what you do cross-links with other professions and look at their articles too, because sometimes you'll find a match in their stuff, which I found with the Bankers Association. I went to their website after speaking with you, Teresa, last week, and found on their website that they actually put out a white paper encouraging people to do the programs that I'm thinking about doing. So it's like they've done my marketing research for me. So I'm really excited, you know, just doing, and it's there. It's just.
And the importance of using that new term now is, so long as it's being used widespread in this industry, is that it's one of their own terms. So it's relevance right out of the gate. And you then appear to be a subject matter expert because only a subject matter expert would know how to use that term. It's their language. So anytime we can start speaking their language, that's what we want to, oh, there's Mark. He's here twice. Sorry. I'm like, squirrel. He must have gotten on a different computer. So Rad, did you have a quick question or a quick comment?
Yeah, I was just saying that's such a great white paper to share with potential clients, just to say, oh, you know, thinking about you, came across this, here you go.
Absolutely.
Who are they going to call? Yeah. Good.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's what your association says you should be doing. So hire me.
That's right. Yeah, Mark, now that you have sound, hopefully, and an internet connection.
Yeah, how's that? Can you hear me okay?
Awesome. We can hear you now.
Right.
Yay.
All right. So I got a couple groups, bureaus who've been like just bugging the crap out of me, waiting for like the updated speaking package. So I know I'm speaking with Allison on Thursday. I'm speaking with you on Friday. I'm totally psyched about that. And as I was logging into today's meeting, I get an email from the Continuous Improvement Conference, and they've booked me for their event in Las Vegas in October. I did come down. My normal rate, and I'm not, this is not bragging, but my normal rate is $9,500. I came down to $75 for them. On
what basis? I'm curious.
Sorry?
Well, on what basis? What was it? Did you do some in-kind trade? Did they have? Is it your perfect audience? You're going to do a breakout? What was your concept?
Well, they were kind of hemming and hawing a little bit, and you know. And the thing is, they're paying me. So I'm in Toronto. I'm in Canada. So normally I charge $9,500 Canadian. So they're paying me $7,500 American, which is probably a little more than $9,500 Canadian. So they're getting a deal, but I'm in terms of my income, I'm actually ahead of the game a little bit.
Now that rationale, I'll let you off the hook on.
Thank you. Thank you. But no, but you know what? It's funny what you were saying about the whole getting out of bed number. And I mean, I welcome input from the rest of the group, but you know, when people talk about what you won't get out of bed for, to me, that is like, I don't even want to talk about it, you know? And my view has always been, I'll be more than happy to listen. And even now, I mean, I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I still speak for free on occasion. I'll speak to schools for free on occasion. I've even spoken to some associations if I think that the audience is so rich and has so much potential, and I can just, you know, drive or take the subway downtown, or I'll be back by dinner time, you know, I'll maybe do it. So I don't really have a get out of bed number kind of thing, but I do have I won't show up number. You know, it's more of like a list of conditions, you know. So gotcha. So some events I'll say no to 2,500. They'll say, or some ridiculous number. I'll say no, but some events I'll speak for free.
Well, and let me, that's a great point to bring up, and I'll clarify as far as David and I's stance on it. So there are those things we do in our life that are a little bit philanthropy based. We sow back in, we're sowing forward, we're serving, we're doing all those things. But we can't do that until our own air mask is on our face and we have our financial base and we're paying our bills and we're deriving a sustainable, consistent income from the thing we've called our profession, in this case, speaking, coaching, and training. When you are not making money doing speaking, training, and coaching, and you're not paying your bills, you cannot afford to go speak for free. And because you're just starting, you need to establish your professional fees. So those people who hire you refer you to other people who are willing and able and capable of paying your professional fee. What happens all too often, it isn't that you can never speak for free. It's about getting your own air mask on first and then going and doing some philanthropy. I mean, every once in a while, I'll go do a free engagement because I have one a month on my calendar I've allowed myself to do. Everything else is paid. And so again, I'm always looking at that audience. Are they my ideal audience? Can I monetize the back? When I was doing coaching one-to-one, could I move them into a coaching engagement? So that's basically what Marc is saying. He looks at the audience strategically and says, can I get there cheaply? Am I already paying my bills and I'm already stable and sustainable? And can I afford to do this? And in this case, he can. Some of us in this room cannot do that yet. We're just not there. And that's why David and I are so adamant about charge your professional fee. It sets the tone in the marketplace for what you are and what you offer and the value that you bring. So just to be clear that where you are in the season of your career, Marc's been doing this for 5 years. He's got a little leeway. He's got a little bit of negotiation room that he's created for himself. Not everybody can say that they are at that point. So I just want to clarify that. But thank you for bringing that up, Marc. I appreciate it. All right, let's get into some questions. Julie says, how do you identify the events gigs that have budget or capacity to pay? Well, if there were a website somewhere that listed them all, that would be fabulous, wouldn't it? We would have a lot less work to do. Unfortunately, so there's a couple indicators. You can go to the speaker page, you can go to their previous events and take a look at what speakers have been there, who've donned their stage before. Sometimes there are big headliners and you can almost bet that there was some sort of fee paid for that. I would say at a general level, breakouts are not typically paid. So if they have a speaker lineup of 80 speakers, you can bet that 90% of them did breakouts, and it might be questionable whether they got compensated or not. Sometimes there's in-kind sponsorship. We'll give you a booth at the back. You can sell from stage. There's lots of different scenarios that events use to pay. The primary way to find out if they're paying is to call. When I say call, just for the record, throughout this whole call, I always say call, and I mean have a conversation. However, you need to get that conversation going. If it's an email, a LinkedIn referral, a conversation of some sort via electronic means or phone-to-phone or face-to-face. But you just need to ask, and the only way you're going to be able to ask is to couch that in the value that you bring, based upon your desire to solve the problems that they're suffering from. So as it relates to your, how do you find out? There's a couple of indications. Like I said, you can also take a look at, how many members do they have and how many speakers do they have? How many main stage opportunities do they have? And again, just looking at the speaker lineups from past events, you can sometimes gauge, but there is no way to, before the event or having a conversation, there's not a surefire guaranteed way to figure out they have budget and they don't. Too much of what you were saying earlier about the consultant approach, but going in and saying, hey, you might find engagements or events that don't pay a speaker fee, but given great content and value, you can monetize that by doing consulting, coaching, training after the fact, or doing a pre-event training session. They don't have a speaker stage honorarium, but they have a pre-day. I would still try to negotiate both, obviously. The more you get paid, the more sustainable you become. But there are lots of ways as a consultant, trainer, and coach that you can offer that value add and go a little deeper in the organization to monetize that event. But typically, I wish I could tell you there was a database somewhere that said this one does and this one doesn't, but there isn't. It doesn't exist. So any follow-up to that, Julie, before I move on? Question or otherwise? Comment? Disappointment? Yeah, Matt.
I know I'm new, so hi everybody first. One thing that I've been told before is if it's local, then it's probably not paid. If it's regional, then there might be a budget. If it's national, then there probably is a budget. And that's just something I don't know if everybody else has had that experience, but that's generally speaking, at least a guideline of if you're meeting a chapter meeting, that's not going to get paid. A local chapter meeting, a city chapter meeting, that's probably not going to be paid. Work your way up from there. And as you work your way up, you might start finding budgets. That's something I've come across in the past.
I think that's probably a fair generalization. I've been paid locally because I asked for it and I negotiated it. Doesn't mean that I've been paid, that I've been able to successfully negotiate every local gig. It just means that those that I negotiated and stood firm in, I got. And then there are just some that they weren't going to pay anyway, so I walked away from them. And Minneapolis, St. Paul's a big metro. So local, what does local mean for you? Is local a small town? Is local a major metro? What is local for any context? And I think as a general rule, yes, the state, the national associations, those larger organizations will typically have budget. But again, they're not going to spend that budget any more without value than they would with, otherwise. They got to have value. They got to have a return. So I don't think you're off base, Matt. I just think there's more parameters, and I dislike generalizations because it seems like there's always an exception to every rule. And so, but you're right. The higher up you go, the more apt you're going to get your full fees and better fees. Is that cool, Julie? Oh, I think she's good. You can hear, right, Julie? Am I looking at the wrong Julie? Do we have two Julies? I'm not sure. All right.
Yes, there are two Julies.
That
was the other Julie.
Oh, okay. Well, where is the other? I'm not hearing from the other Julie, so she must be on mute and can't get herself off mute. So you can put a note in the chat if you're able to, Julie. But I hope that was helpful. I hope maybe she's not even on the call anymore. So, all right. Let's see. Let me go down to the next. All right, William. Which niche should I focus on, and what specific problem I am aimed to solve for that target market? Wow. That's about this big, dude. That's a wide open chasm. What short list do you have? What have you started to settle on? Give me something to work with besides what I should tell you to do.
Let me unmute you. You hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Great. Okay. So I like last time we talked.
Breaking up. Internet breaking up.
Potential so last time we chat, we were talking about that potential. No, still not working.
Hey, I can hear you now. Don't move.
Okay.
If you go back the last 30 seconds and just bring me up to date, that'd be great. Oh, and now he's frozen.
Okay. Last time we chat, we talked about the middle managers potentially solving problems about productivity and happiness, about the mindset. Mm-hmm. So my question is that I'm getting traction right now for technology conferences. The two or three about to get are going to be technology industry. So I don't know if that's a good direction for me to go. I feel that the productivity and happiness part of it is too vague. It's not very specific. I'm considering something like make skills. That's more specific, but I don't know. So that's why I would like your feedback.
So a couple different, so essentially happiness as a solution, happiness for what does it create for the company? And essentially what you're touching on is culture, reducing conflict, possibly increasing engagement, increasing retention, talent development, all of that, and decreasing turnover. So all of those are real tangibles that companies are looking for solutions for. The way you do that is through your happiness development, all that. So just separating those two is really where I think the distinction needs to be made. Additionally, when you say, is tech a good place? Absolutely, tech is a great place. The question is, can you get on board and be a student of the game and learn what you need to know about the nuances of tech and become a tech guru, a tech expert? Like, you know that industry so well that you know how to apply this to their scenarios. If the answer is yes, and you can get on board and feel passionate about serving a tech market, it's as good a market as any other market. The only difference is you got to know who to talk to and what specific problems you're solving in the tech world, and then what language you have to use to prove to them that you know their world.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm debating on, because I sat down and look at my talent, experience, and things like that. I actually have a lot of experience with managing software projects. So because that's what I'm doing now with my day job. So I want to leverage that instead of shying away from that.
So I love that you've managed software projects. So maybe diving into that project management in tech world, right?
Potentially either the project management or the communication, like how do you deal with confrontation? How do you manage sometimes the unrealistic expectations from the stakeholders?
Right. So again, and when I think project management, I also think deadlines and high pressure and lots of expectation to meet deadlines on time and before time to be profitable, and lots of opportunities for people to be no longer happy and get burned out and leave the company. So I think from all intensive purposes, as I think through
absolutely
what you're talking about, I think just land there. Let's go for that. Let's just go forward and start finding some decision makers, some specific clients, and then start crafting this language of what you do in those environments. Let's find some more sound bites that indicate what we know about their industry and their environment in which they work. And then we'll target those hooks that we're talking about that are valuable to a client.
Yes, I definitely, I like this direction. So like I'm thinking how to sell my talk for the people that I'm about to talk to and close the deals on, because I already have two that are very close to closing. So like those two are probably not going to change anything. I'm just going to make sure that because it's already in the contract phase, they're looking at the final details, all that stuff. But moving forward, let's say at Google, I search for technology conferences, or I search for technology companies, right? So I don't know what my talk should be. I think from fear to courage is too broad. Maybe something like from invisible to superstar. I don't know. Because something that indicates that the pain for the people working in technology is that the process, when things go well, other people don't see it. When things are going well, they don't see it. They don't see the work behind it. But when things don't go well, it's like, oh my God, this is so simple. How could you mess up again?
Right. So I think that deserves so now if we talk about what is the talk, what is the actual body of content, that deserves a much deeper conversation than we can go on today's call. And we can attack that in our one-on-one. I think really, really critical for you right now in order to know where that talk needs to go and what it needs to address and what to include, we need to first define the specific list of problems that we decided we're going to solve. Like, these are the top 5 problems, and let's get that crafted into, and again, the one sheet and the 8 reasons to hire, guys, is yes, it's a collateral piece that you can send out to people when they say, send me your stuff. But the other really, really deep purpose and value of those is just to get the ideas that are in your head on paper. Like to have actually processed through what are my clients' problems and how do I want to talk about it. And when you can move all of that language in the direction of a printed document, it just makes you do it. And so, well, I don't propose that the one sheet and the why hire doc are like the creme de la creme. It's going to get you booked automatically. It is a piece that helps you process through this. So when you're having conversations, your communication is more effective for booking yourself, getting yourself on stages, and winning the full fee, because you have articulated it so clearly to the client. They see the value in it. So for you, William, that's what we've got to do next before we worry about the talk. Before we start constructing the actual presentation. So let's get really clear on that, and let's dive a little bit deeper in a one-to-one and come up. And I think you've decided if you're a game. Is there any reason you wouldn't decide on this now that we've gotten this far?
So I feel I should clarify how I came to the conclusion about the technologies. I don't like you said, I could take any other space as well. If I have the passion, the experience, and all that. But I feel that my recent experience, the last 5 years, that's what I've been doing. And then now I have traction because of the upcoming paid speaking engagements. Let's leverage it.
Strike while the iron's hot. Let's use what you're most fresh with, and let's go. Because remember, niching is not a life sentence. It's a niche for now. We're gonna pick one and go in that direction for a defined amount of time. You're gonna have all the skills necessary to pivot anytime you want in the future. But until we pick, right, Charles? Until we pick and focus and go full force ahead, we stay in ambiguity land and we don't get anything done. So I would say for niche for now, let's go directly for that, and then let's start hashing out what those 5-8 reasons are to hire you, and get that on paper so you can start having those conversations more effectively. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's a big deal. I know that I'm going to be looking more of those in the near future.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm going to move on to the next question, and let's wrap up with a one-to-one. Go ahead and get that on the calendar, William.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get you going. Awesome. Good work. All right. Dave said the characteristics or habit of those who do the best once this program is completed. Well, the program, while our interactions may end, the program is ongoing and in perpetuity. So quite honestly, the habits and characteristics are persistence, lead generation, always being open to a consultative discovery with a potential client. And honestly, if there is one, and I just had this conversation with someone today on a coaching call, if there's one characteristic you can develop, it's to become a detective. It's to become a sleuth. So again, I'm retiring all of you for all intents and purposes as speakers, coaches, and consultants. I am now donning you with the title of detective. You are looking for problems. You are looking for issues. You are looking for ways that you can solve. And so your persistence in having those conversations and constantly being aware. I'm going to talk a little bit when we get through the questions, if we've got a little time. I want to talk about that reticular activator and how things don't fall in your lap. You have to recognize them and go seize them. And so I would say that the characteristics, Dave, are absolutely persistence, constantly lead generation, and never taking for granted the opportunities that you might come up against. Always research, always dig, always ask questions. Those if you can become a master questioner, you will have all the business you ever want in the world. Cool? Awesome. Right, next question. William asked that. Very rural area local gigs. Help me out. Am I behind here? There we go. All right, Bob. I am a topic niche. I've done an enormous amount of work in the sports ministry sector to do profit. My speaking has mainly been in the education markets and under the topic of leadership. When I speak on the corporate associations, obviously you can see why I've signed up. You didn't want to just spend time with me, Bob. You actually needed to get something done with your career. Is that what it is? I've inadvertently become a jack of all trades, or a Bob of all trades. You provide to the market, faith, education, corporate, as well as ideas. Okay. So kind of the same question as William just asked. Like, what do I, now, what I would say for all intents and purposes for the way we work in this program, and we've talked about a little bit of this the other day in regards to corporate or business problem versus faith market, because you have two tracks you can run. For all intents and purposes, because we have better faith in the fact that we'll get paid full fee in the business market more quickly, right. I would say let's focus in that direction first. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you have leadership capability or leadership, that esque with the youth, and of course it sounds like, but it's been the sports market. You've worked with adults too, right? In leadership coaches.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've kind of worked with all of them. Our program got really successful, and schools started to invite me to speak, and then businesses started to invite me to speak. And I'm kind of at the top end of the education market right now too. And And so, but because I have an organization that I'm running and then I'm just going and speaking out, speaking, I don't want to say on the side because my income's a full-time income in the speaking.
Right.
But I just have other responsibilities. I've just left an enormous amount of money on the table because I haven't narrowed down at this point. And so,
Gotcha.
I had just put in the question queue, is it possible to merge a leadership and faith in the corporate market, similar to like a John Maxwell or something like that? And I think that's where my heart is. And I think that's what I'm struggling with. I've got my heart saying go one way, but I don't know if there's any profit in that. Right. And so that's what I'm struggling with, I think.
Yeah. Well, John Maxwell is actually a perfect example. And being John Maxwell certified, I know quite a bit about John Maxwell. He and I go way back. And I will tell you, when he's working in a corporate market, he is the faith that he is. And we talked a little bit about this on our last call, but he's teaching leadership principles to companies. Mm-hmm. And of course, with all of his 78 books that he's written, he's got different flavors of leadership applied to different things. Right. But his when he goes in to do a presentation at a corporation, which he does a lot of, he just is the faith side. People know that's his background, but he doesn't necessarily focus on it. That's not his forward trajectory. He doesn't position himself that way on his websites. He doesn't necessarily say, I am the faith-based leadership speaker. He's just a leadership speaker and the number one in the country.
Right.
So,
and I guess my thought was, though, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this too, leadership is so broad and mm-hmm. so maybe in a way almost saturated too. Mm-hmm. You don't think it is?
No, it's only saturated if you go into the market and go, I'm leadership.
Right.
What becomes distinct and articulated it with great value is when you say leadership for so they can, and you fill in that little blank. So in this case, when you look at leadership problems and you look at companies that are suffering from poor leadership, they've got bad leaders. What's happening in that company?
Right.
And again, you may not know the answers today, but I would really invite you to think, like, reverse engineer this. Go into the problem first, mm-hmm. and then figure out how it correlates to leadership, and then figure out who in the leadership chain is responsible for causing that problem. Now, there's a huge movement right now, and when I say movement, I don't mean like, advocacy movement. I mean, there seems to be a shift in the corporate market right now to really wanting to pay more attention to the human being, not the cubicle occupant, not the number on the list, but actually human. And of course, you can never go wrong talking about emotional intelligence and leadership, and not management, but leaders and how they raise up other leaders. But the key is we've got to figure out that one thing, Bob, that is really important to you in the day in the life of a company, be it a corporation or a mid-sized business, manufacturing, banking, financial, whatever industry you think you want to entertain and do some research around. What is the number one thing that really pisses you off? Like, what makes you mad? What can you fix that's really broken right now?
Right. Okay. No, that's good. I mean, I think I can kind of try and flush that out. I think that's what I need. I'm looking for things like that can trigger and flush out what's important. It's not that I can't go speak on leadership. I've done that for years. It needs to be important to me. And yes. I think that's the issue is I don't want to just go out and just speak for fee and if I'm going to lead my family, there needs to be a heart quotient for me, I think.
That's right.
And the reason why I brought it up with the faith and corporate together is I was starting to do some research, and there's these articles of all these companies that are labeled or deemed faith-based companies, Chick-fil-A, Timberland, all these companies. And is that a niche in leadership? I don't know if it is or not, where you actually do put it on the front. Maxwell, and just specifically, I go after a Hobby Lobby, I go after Chick-fil-A, and I say, hey, we have similar core values. Mm-hmm. Can I speak on leadership according to those core values? I think that was my question.
You absolutely can. I think it limits your market because number one, if they don't put it out front, you don't necessarily know who your target is. You're back to just, if the company hasn't made it a part of their positioning in the marketplace as a faith-based organization,
right?
You're back to kind of square one anyway and asking. And then, so so the question is, if you have a limited number of companies who self-identify as faith-based, who else can you work with? If you've exhausted that list, which would probably take you a while anyway, to exhaust it, right? There's plenty of opportunity there. It's just getting in, and that might be a longer game, whereas there might be some lower hanging fruit. And maybe there are those organizations that maybe it's leadership in actually helping them become self-identifying. And there's lots of ways to look at that. My brain went to marketing and market share and all that kind of stuff, and I don't want to go there. This is leadership. But with leadership, what are the traits and characteristics of what a faith-based leader does versus what this company's leader does, and is there a gap that you can close?
Right.
And maybe it's just in the value of humans, the value of human value potential. Mm-hmm. And you're helping, again, mid-level managers work with their front-end support and build up other leaders. And there's just a component there that in mid-sized businesses with mid-level managers, which, by the way, mid-level managers are very underserved in the companies, and they're the most stressed, and they have the most demand on them because they're getting it from the top and the bottom. And everybody, consultants, love serving the C-suite. They love serving the C-suite because there's a little bit of shine to it. So if you can have a heart for that mid-level manager that's getting it from both sides and has probably never been trained to be a manager, or a better termed a leader, that could be a very core place for you. And then you're also working on their personal development in that process. Yeah. Personal, spiritual, mental, emotional development.
Right.
So again, I think, just reverse engineering it a bit and saying, okay, none of us are going to be effective if we aren't doing something that we're passionate about. And even if it's not passion, we're committed. We're committed to wanting to see this solution because we see it's broken. Right. And when we get on that board and we get on that side of things, there's no stopping us, because it's like having a cure to cancer. You would never hold back the cure to cancer to anyone who had cancer. You would try to get it out to everyone. Well, quite honestly, bad leadership is a cancer in these companies. So if you have a cure for that, let's figure out what specific problem bad leadership is causing and go forward with that for now. Again, niching for now, not a life sentence.
Right. Well, and I'm not opposed to going that way, because the content I can pull into my other platforms too.
Sure.
But I think the idea of, like, the statement of what's broken or really makes a person mad, and what can you fix, hopefully that'll flush something out. That's, I think, what I'm looking for. I would guess probably other people are too, when they're trying to figure out what their niche is. How do we flush that out? It's in all of us, but.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, get out on Google. Google is your best friend. And Google, biggest problems with leadership, gaps in leadership and mid-level support. Just start Googling and reading some articles, because again, you can't edit a blank page. And if the ideas aren't already in your head, you might just need some word fodder to get some ideas spurred. And so if you go out to Google and you just say, what are the problems in this marketplace? And again, you're going to look at market, industry. You're also going to look at position. What are the biggest struggles with mid-level managers, with VPs, with directors, with C-suite, wherever, and just start reading some articles and looking at it through the eyes of what other people are seeing. And I guarantee you're going to go, oh yeah, that's it. Or it's some version of this. And if I did it this way, it would look like this and it'd be different. But again, you can't edit a blank page. So you've got to get some fuel in the tank. So I would say, and I know it sounds super oversimplified to go Google, but quite honestly, 90% of just knowing what the problems are in real life in these organizations, if you haven't lived it for yourself, the only access you have are to the people who are talking about them and trying to solve them in other ways.
So are you guys also suggesting then, okay, you narrow down, you find that pain point, then do you narrow down the industry and say, I want to do leadership only for people in real estate, or I want to do insurance? Or are you saying use that whole platform to go into anywhere? What's your recommendation on that?
The more focused you are, the more succinct your prospecting gets. And so again, it's for a defined amount of time. It doesn't mean that you're forever real estate, or you're forever banking, or you're forever manufacturing. But what happens, two things happen. Number one, you get ultra focused And so all the opportunities start to reveal themselves, and you start to be able to go after them a little easier. The second thing that happens is the compound effect of the conversations you're having with the people in that market or that industry. So you go and you talk to a real estate agent or a real estate broker or somebody in that realm, and they go, oh, well, we've got these events and we've got these people, and I can introduce you to these people, and don't forget this. And you're asking for AIR. That's one of our tactics to getting out. So AIR, advice, insight, and recommendations, is AIR, advice, insight, and recommendations, for those of you that are new. And so when you're asking for AIR conversations, they're revealing to you a lot of insights around that industry, language they're using, problems that they're suffering from. So you take each conversation you have and you build it on the other, and before you know it, 5-10 conversations in, you're an expert. You have a very clear understanding. If you tried to do that with 10 conversations amongst 10 industries, you wouldn't gain that same compound effect.
Right.
So again, I'll repeat for the sake of everyone who's got that nervousness, I don't want to niche and get too narrow. It isn't forever. It's for a defined amount of time, so you can bake your prospecting in one direction at a time, not forever.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. So my homework for you would be, Bob, is just do a little Google, do a little research, figure out kind of some options, get a short list together of problems. And then of course, the next step is, where does that problem show up the most? Where does that problem appear? And who is at the most critical place to need to fix it? Where does it impede business the most? And if we can find that combination, we've got a winning recipe.
Okay.
Cool?
Okay. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Mr. Fred Reggie's up next. What is your opinion of ASAE membership and or attendance at the annual conference? And 2, should I create separate one sheets and 7 reasons higher for different industries? I'm especially interested in differentiating between corporate and nonprofit prospects. Okay, number 1, what do I think of ASAE? I think it's a great organization. I was a member 3 years ago. I had some great relationships from them. I didn't book a ton of stuff, but admittedly, I didn't work those relationships very consistently. So just as with anything else, you get out what you put in. The conference tends to be a pretty good conference. Again, if you're clear and you know I would research who's going to be at the conference and go have key conversations with those associations specifically, and make those relationships. I think, oh, whoops, let me go back here. There we go. Again, I think it's a great association. You're going to meet a lot of executives. Just make sure you know who's in the room. Are you trying to get on stage at the annual conference, or just attending, are you thinking?
No, just attending. I'm curious. Years and years ago, I worked for a company a tour company in New Orleans, a destination management company. And we used to set up a booth at ASAE every year. Because it was an opportunity to make some pretty good connections, and I was wondering if membership in that organization is worth it for us as speakers.
That worth it phrase it makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to put yourself in front of associations who you can have direct relationships with? And is the membership of $600 or $700 a year? Can you get that back with a couple of engagements? Absolutely. 100% if you work it, if you make it worth your time and your money and your resource. So being a member itself is not going to give you diddly. Just being a member is not, you've got to go to the meetings. I realize that. Yeah, you've got to go to the meetings. You've got to have the conversations. And I would, talk with them about their upcoming conference. And you never know. Ask them about their attendance. Has it been up or down? What's the theme of their meeting? Could you do a morning breakfast breakout that they would sponsor? Or, lots of different ways to start aligning with them as well and adding value. But, the membership alone, is it worth it? I wouldn't say yes or no. I think there's more to the story.
I agree.
You're acknowledging.
I agree. I was more interested in, attending their conference and being able to network at that conference. If that was worth it, does that really happen to where you make solid connections? Is there time for that? Or do they just prefer to mingle among themselves, their peers?
Well, sometimes they do. I mean, what I would do, I would very strategically poise yourself to look for out of the membership and those that if you can find out if they're attending, which sometimes you can, they self-reveal in groups and things like, hey, I'm going to be at the conference, yada, yada, yada. If you have some idea, or once you get there, you have a better idea of who's in attendance, and you can do a little research on them and pinpoint the ones with the larger memberships, pinpoint the ones that are more in line with the kind of work that you want to do and the solution you provide, then have key conversations or invite them to a morning breakfast or an evening cocktail hour that you sponsor. So when you're having these networking conversations, you have something to invite them to if they want to come. Sometimes that conflicts with the other events that are going on the event, so you just want to be careful of like timing and logistics. But I've had 10 or 15 people around a table at a morning breakfast that just through work in the hallways, I've said, hey, why don't you join me for breakfast tomorrow? I'm getting a few people together and we'll just sit around and get to know each other, do a little networking. I'll host. Breakfast is on me. People show up. Amazing. Free food. It always works. So, but I've also done that poorly and didn't pay attention to timing. And of course, the event already had breakfast going on, and so nobody showed up. So that was not so good. But, and then separate one sheets. I think it is key because the difference between what you build for the first push into the industry and into where you're going at first, once you get that built, it's really just nuances and certain terms and certain sentences that you're going to shift, or maybe certain outcomes you're going to modify on the alternate version. I don't think there's anything wrong with having 2 versions of a 7 reasons or a speaker sheet. You don't want to have 10. That's just too much to manage on the hard drive. But I think if you're specific in the nonprofit outcomes might be different in your world than the corporate outcomes. So yeah, build the first one and shift the nuances as on the second. I don't think they have to be polar opposite or remarkably different.
No, and they're not. The outcomes really are the same. The perception of the outcomes and the value of the outcomes differ between corporate and nonprofit. Corporate always sees it as an investment. Nonprofit sees it as an expense. And you really have to emphasize the value that's delivered, because what the program that I have deals with how to make an effective presentation that leads to and secures the gift, the ask, or the sale. Right. And you have to speak a little bit of a different language in nonprofit than you do in the corporate world, because that's just the way the nonprofit mentality works. I spent almost 20 years heavily involved in nonprofit, and I know what the limitations are in their thinking, in their budgets, and to be able to articulate the outstanding and profitable outcome from what I have to offer that's really the critical point, and it has to be positioned differently than I would if I was dealing with an association of wall and ceiling contractors.
Right.
Yeah.
I would encourage that. Again, I don't, for anybody on the call that's thinking, oh my God, I don't even have my first one done. You mean I have to have 2? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying where appropriate, what Fred is pointing out is very, very key, that you may have, as you work the same industry or the same niche, you may have 2 different perspectives you might have to represent on those collateral pieces. Should they ask, you want it to be the most relevant it can be to that audience. So that's a great point, Fred, and I would certainly encourage you to do that. But don't anybody else freak out that you have to have multiple. Every time you contact somebody, you have to have a new sheet. I can just hear the emails now. What? So anything else, Fred?
No, that's it. Thank you, Teresa.
All right, you're so welcome. All right, Shawn, you're up. Simplicity specialist, call myself an organizing productive. Lately, I've noticed because of SFP. Who's SFP?
Actually, Teresa, I'm going to just back that question out. I think that's a question that you and I should have. So I don't want to take up everybody's time. That seems more targeted for me. So what I wanted to address, a couple things, is one is, what is it that we should be sending to you and David? And maybe other people need this question as well. Like I have a question, like that question about the organizing guru. Is that something that I should send to you and David? Should I send you the language marketing bank, even though it's really ugly? And
right.
You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. What should you send David and I? Let's see, chocolates, money cards, gift cards, flowers,
gold, yeah, gold jewelry, yeah,
bourbon. We take bourbon.
Good to know. Okay, got my question answered.
So, and any of you feel free to adopt that mindset as well. I'm happy to share that need. You know, so typically it's your 8 reasons and your reasons to hire, or excuse me, your reasons to hire, 8 reasons, and your speaker 1 sheet, because that's an output that we need to get into rough draft formats for Allison.
Right.
However, if you have a paragraph, if you have your verbal business card and you're like, hey, what do you think of this? Is this succinct enough? Does this hit the mark? If it's some of maybe the language in your bio or whatever, and you just want to include that in not an email, but into support@doitmarketing.com.
Yes.
You certainly can. I mean, it's anything you want us to just give kind of a read over and go, not on target from what we've been talking about, or that sounds too superfluous. Let's make it more succinct and we can give you some suggestions. So if it's in writing, just put it into support@doitmarketing.com. These last couple of weeks, David and I have been just crazy with travel, and now he's gone and everything else. So it's been a little slower than normal, but we try to get to those within 24 to 48 hours, just to let you know. But yeah, anything you want us to kind of, hey, am I thinking the right way? Yeah. Does this make sense to you? That kind of thing.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I think, oh, hey, this language bank sounds pretty good, but my guess is that if you guys took a look at it, you'd be like, yeah, no, this is, so I don't want to keep building, and I'm pretty sure of that. I don't want to keep building on something where the foundation is, weak already. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the marketing language workbook is for really that culmination of those initial ideas and continued clarity around who you've chosen to work with, what their problems really are, because it's that reference document, because you guys are going to start prospecting and having conversations, and you're 3 months down the line, and you're going to start to maybe move into other areas that are less specific, and you're starting to not get booked and people aren't responding to what you're saying. And you're like, wait a minute, I had really good success and now I'm not getting success. What happened? And you can go back to that plan and go, oh, wait a minute, I've migrated off my original topic, my initial conciseness, my initial choice of niche or whatever. So it's kind of that it's that baseline for you to always come back and go, here's who I decided is my perfect client. It also serves as a purpose that if you are tempted to take some of these lower paying gigs, or you're being challenged to, well, maybe it could be an audience that I could serve, you can come back and go, wait a minute, is it in line with what I decided I wanted to do for now? And it's kind of that control document, if you will. The other purpose for it early on is just to get things out of your brain on paper. It's just to kind of start wrestling with what the short lists are of what do I want to do, and is this right? And then, yeah, if we're in that phase and you want to send it on over, we'll take a look at it. And I'll probably do like I did with Charles. I said, I went line by line with what his outline was. I'm like, wait a minute, what about this? And what about that? And this doesn't make sense. And why did you say that? And this isn't concise enough. Bring it in, so we did some good work. And then he emailed, another great big email about, well, this is why I did it. I'm like, okay, cool. We're good. So it's just a matter of going, yeah, you're in the right direction. No, you're not. If I had a suggestion, I would do this instead. Maybe make this more concise. Is that specific enough? And the one thing that most of you miss when in some of these early days of crafting some of this language is the so you can bit.
Yeah.
So you guys have great things up to that point. You're saying, I help leaders create great environments in their workplaces. Okay. So they can outcome. Okay. So that so they can is a magic phrase that anything you write, if you put so they can, you are forced to create an outcome. Yep. And so that's where we want those sound bites captured. The pain gain factors that, what pain am I alleviating and what gain do we give what's that altruistic outcome that after we've solved it, having some of those sentences paired together. So they're go-tos when you're naming your talks, naming your sections, your workshops that you have that they've asked you to do a breakout for. Again, it's just that go-to place that when you need something for the marketplace, you can go back and it's consistent.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
And
cool.
So my follow-up question was about, in my language bank, am I solving the problems of the people that are sitting in front of me, or am I solving the problems for the people that are writing my check?
Great question. That is a very key distinction that a lot of people don't make until later on. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
So when you are talking about you are asking to be paid to speak or do consulting, training, coaching, what have you.
Yeah.
You are talking to the decision maker about what's in it for them.
Yeah.
What will your organization as a financial investment, what can I assure you as a return on that investment?
Okay.
In your people? And you're talking to a CEO, you're talking to a VP, you're talking to whomever is the economic decision maker.
Okay.
When you show up to do the thing that you do, most likely you're serving the people in the room, which are his direct reports. These are the people he manages. These are the people that are in the organization. These are the people who will actually take action on the things that you present to make the change you promised the decision maker.
Right.
So while we always serve the people in the room, which are typically the employees of a business or the members of an association, the economic decision maker needs to have skin in the game too, and that's a different solution. That's a different outcome for him than it is, and he gets that outcome by way of the change that you create in his employees.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that's very helpful.
Does anybody else have any questions about that? Does that make sense? Is that different than what you've thought in the past? Comments? Roger's always thumbs up. Sometimes two if you're lucky. All right, let's move on. Let's see here. What did it, Shawn? Let me scroll down. Thank goodness Morgan's on top of this stuff, I tell you. All right. Oh, that's that. Marc, that's you, Shawn? Yeah, okay. Lord have mercy. You guys are all over today. I love it. Super engagement. That's awesome. All right, Marc. I've encouraged my Allison to make my speaking package a single page, but I noticed David is 11. Oh, Marc, is she saying speaker packet or just the speaker sheet?
Well, to me, I never really did a sheet. From day one, I've always had a speaking package.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, which I don't know if I've sent it to you or not. I'm not sure, but I did. Okay, yep. So I'm regutting that thanks to you guys. And by the way, that thing where you say, at the end you say, so you can. I tell that to my clients, but I am guilty of not doing it myself. So thank you for whacking me on the head and reminding me to, when we tell others to do things that we ourselves forget to do. So
let me tell you, our Kool-Aid is very, very flavorful, and we don't drink enough of it.
I'm drowning in it right now. Okay. So I've never really had the typical one sheet thing. I've never liked it. It's never worked for me. I've always had a package. It's always ranged from anywhere from 3 up to 5 pages. I think right now it's 5 pages. And Allison's like, oh, we got to get those 3 presentation pages. I've 3 presentations. Each one has its own page. She's like, we got to get it down to 1. But I noticed Dave, it's stretched. In fact, like, okay, so where's this?
Have you ever heard it do as I say, not as I do? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, you're speaking like a consultant now.
Yeah, here's the value. So does it have to be anything? No, it doesn't. There's no rule. There's no thing that says, oh my gosh, if you're outside these lines, then because it's multiple pages, then you're out of luck. The bottom line is when you have things a little more concise, maybe a front and a back. I mean, being able
to me that counts as 2 pages.
Well, sure, but it's a sheet, right? It's a one sheet.
Well, everything I'm sending is a PDF. So to me, both sides is still 1 page. Sorry, 2 pages rather.
Sure. Yeah. And so long as the content, so here's the caveat. It doesn't matter if it's 1 page, 10 pages, 50 pages. If the content is so compelling that they will read all of those pages and they will keep reading, then keep them in there. If it has value and relevancy to the conversation you just had, and that you've proposed the 3, if it's 3 programs or 4 programs, you've had that discussion. Because again, this is not going out blindly. You're not just sending this PDF randomly to meeting planners and hope they read it.
Right.
You've had a conversation. You've established some sort of proposal, or here's what I think would be best based on our conversation and your needs as a meeting planner, the theme of this meeting, da, 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 da. Here are the 3 programs I would recommend as being considered. Now, if you have 10 programs in 11 pages or 9 pages, that's not relevant. That's no longer relevant. You've now confused the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So how you use that, it isn't a matter of the number of pages, it's how you position it. So the nice thing about a single sheet, front and back or whatever, is that in those conversations, you can have a sheet that just, like, these are my 3 most popular. It's easy to read, it's quick, it's succinct, and it's tight. And they get it as a busy meeting planner and they go, oh, got it. I like him. You know, he didn't waste my time with a 11-page document that I have to somehow sort through and get all the way through.
Right.
If, in fact, though, you have a conversation, you say, I'm going to send you my speaker packet. It is multiple pages. I'd like you to take a look at page 3 and page 5, and you've given them some direction. They then all have all the other information that might also be relevant at some other point, but you've distilled the most important part of that packet. So it isn't so much that you have multiple pages, it's how you use it. And that,
Right.
and having a single sheet available as well as the whole packet, super strategic, because now you can position the single sheet for those conversations that are very poignant and you know exactly what you're going after, or just for general information when they say send me your stuff and you haven't been able to have a conversation, you'd like them to know the breadth of your work and what all you offer, right? So no harm in that. I wouldn't say that that's an action. That's not going to be an action-oriented call to action with 11 pages, because again, they're going to say, well, which part of this am I supposed to pay attention to?
Right. Well, in all fairness to Dave, I mean, stuff is very clear. You know, it was a nice package. I was just like considering Allison seems to want me to make mine smaller, and it's currently 5, and his is 11. Yeah, you know, it seemed a little like a bit of a disconnect. But one thing he did do, and I want to ask you about it, is right now, my first page is simply a bio, like who the heck is this guy? Mm-hmm. The second one is really what I can do for the organization. And on that page, the second page, I have the 8 reasons. You know, I would put that on the second page. So it's like first one is who I am. The second one is what I can do for you. And then the other 3, each of them is a presentation, like what it's about, what we do. I noticed with Dave, he had another page, which was almost like a one sheet where it listed all his presentations on one page with a quick little summary. So you could do one quick scan and see his talks. Should I create that as well? Or because I only have 3 presentations, just leave them on each of their own sheet and not have an additional sort of quick summary sheet?
So the cool thing about a speaker one sheet, back to kind of just that single thing, is it's a summary of all the greatest hits of you. So you've got your small bio that has some creds in it. You know, these are your distinctions, these are your experience. And then there's usually a nice sized paragraph that talks about what you provide in terms of their need and the critical nature of the problem you're solving, and builds a little context and builds a little case for why this is important and what you do for them and what are the outcomes that they get. Then you have kind of a summary of who you've worked with before, so either logos or a client list. You've got some testimonials from past customers. And then, of course, you have featured your 3 outcomes. So it's kind of all in one. It's like a nice little summary page of all the things that is great about Marc, and really highly highlighting what it is you do for them in context to their needs. When you have, and something you said just a second ago, and I just want to clarify, you said it's about Marc, and then it's what you do for them. Is it what you do for them, or is it what they get from you?
Well, it's what they get. It's a sort of, it's what I do for them, but what they get out of it. So it's okay, more semantic with you and I talking right now. I mean, that's something I'll go over with you and Allison, but really it's, the first one is who the heck am I? Right. Because they want to, who is this guy? And then the second one is the idea to understand, or for them to understand that, hey, if they work with me, this is what they're going to get out of it. So what they get out of it and what I give them, it's kind of, you know, how you can word it however you want, but it's really the whole value proposition.
What I would encourage you to move your 8 reasons to the top and leave about you at the end. It's kind of the reason why in advertising, you put the logo at the bottom of an ad and you put the headline at the top, because it's what is in it for them that's most important. And then once they've established that there's some value to, wow, we could use that. Yeah, we could use that. Wow, we could use that. Oh, here's some programs. Cool. who is this guy? Sounds like he's a really great guy. Let's learn a little bit more about him. What's most important is their interest. They don't, no offense, Mark, I love you, but they don't care about you until they know what's in it right now.
Yeah.
So I would switch again, if it's multiple pages, I would put, what are the 8 reasons to hire you? What are the things that people hired you to do in the past? And then tell about yourself at the end.
Okay. And when would I send someone, or why would I send a one sheet over the speaking package?
I would say, again, if the conversation is very poignant and you know exactly which programs on a one sheet, sometimes you can switch those out a little quicker than a whole multi-page PDF. I don't think there is one or the other. You certainly could send the packet, but if you do have a conversation and you're making one suggestion, you're saying, hey, I think this program is the best program, I would send something that only had that program and maybe one backup. I wouldn't send them a whole packet and let them, now, if you only have 3, if you had 5 or 10, that's like sending them a Chinese menu, and we don't want to.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, because there has been instances where I would say, I think this specific presentation is ideal for you. I'd send them the whole thing, and they'd call me back and go, you know what, we don't want that one. We actually like that other one better. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think with 3 that's manageable. Even on a speaker sheet, we say 3 to 4 at most. You know, not more than 4 and less than 5, and preferably 3 most requested programs, because you can't have 10 most requested programs. So, you know, go with your speaker packet, rearrange the order, and just make sure that the content in there is 100% focused on their outcomes, and use it. No law that says it has to be on one sheet.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Kip, I think, is next. Go THC Thursday. Roger, listen, registration. Oh, just make sure Morgan, you'll just make sure that whatever I'm not seeing, you're getting in front of me, right? I don't know how David does this. This is hard work. All right. I'm finding associations represented by various associates. This is Kip. You're on, baby. There you are. I can't find you on the screen. Should the approach to them be any different? Some of the people who work. Give me a summary of what we're asking here. Oh yeah. RFPs, death of speaking. Oh, no sound again, hun.
You there now?
There we go. There he is. All right.
Associations that don't have their own employees, but contract it out to somebody else. There seem to be a lot of those out there.
Yep. Association management firms. Yep.
Right. Should the dealing with those associations go through the associate management firm? Some of those people seem to run more than one association, do more than one thing for multiple associations. Is the approach any different?
No, I mean, you're still after what's the theme of the meeting, what's the numbers, know the numbers in the room. It's still what do you feel, you know, the only difference might be with an association manager, they aren't as intimately aware of the problems their members are facing. So when you start to ask some of those discovery questions of what are the pain points of your members and what kinds of things have you done in the past, they may not have all that information. So you may have to ask for, hey, you know, it would really help me customize my content. It would really help me be more relevant to the group if I could have a conversation with the executive of the association to get a little more detail, you know, just to get a little more detail in the nature and nuances of your members specifically, not just the meeting logistics. And so you may have to ask for another conversation, but if they are the decision maker in regards to hiring you, just the fact that you want to go deeper and have some more specificity around what you're going to be offering bodes well for your investment in the event. And so again, still knowing the numbers, how many people are going to show up, how many have showed up in the past, what content or what presentations have you had in the past. Hopefully you've done your homework and you've seen a couple of years in the past, identify those that have similar content to yours, and then figure out what the differentiations are between what you can tell they presented and what you're about to present. So another key question might be, how did how well was that content received?
Right.
Was there anything that you would have changed about that content? And again, an association management firm may not have all that detail, so just be ready to ask those questions when they say, I don't know. Say, would it be possible for you to connect me with the director that I might be able to get these answers?
Presumably would know, we would hope.
You would hope.
All right, thank you.
And then, oh, you had another question here.
Yes.
At what point in the procedure of contacting someone in the company, not the
Actually,
association?
there was one before that with regard to the request for proposals, speaker forms, that kind of stuff on the association website.
RFPs are the death of speakers that want to get paid. So here's the problem with RFPs. You fill it out and you're a commodity. There's no context, there's no relationship, and you're just a bunch of ink on a paper that got printed out on their printer.
Right.
So the RFP process, now there are some where you call and you say, I'd like to talk with the executive director. I'd like to, again, under the guise of me doing the very best possible job I can for you, I need to speak with the executive director or whomever is managing and planning this meeting so I can be the best resource possible. Brief conversation, 10 or 15 minutes. Who would that be? And are you the person, depending on who you're calling. You get on the phone and you say, what I'm really interested in is either main stage or main stage and a breakout. Do you have, when will you be making those selections? I noticed that you have an RFP on your website, but I wanted to make sure that we had a conversation so there was a little more context around what I can bring and, more importantly, what you're after in the goals of your meeting. So again, you're after main stage placement in order to ask for full fee. Sometimes you can get full fee in breakouts, but not very often. That's not typically the way it works.
Right.
And RFPs are just not effective. Now, if you absolutely know, and again, you wouldn't know without having a conversation, so I wouldn't assume anything, but if you somehow magically know that the people in that room are absolutely your target market, and you think you have a chance to fill out an RFP, you can sure give it a shot, but I can guarantee you won't get paid. Well, okay, I can't guarantee. High likelihood you will not get paid for that submission.
Okay.
So then you have to decide, is it worth my time to go fill out RFPs all over the place?
Generally not, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, now if you are, if you're in a region that you're already going to be there speaking and you find an event that you maybe can bolt on, but I would still talk to the organizer. I just wouldn't fill out an RFP blindly.
Right.
Now, sometimes you talk to them and they send you back to the RFP, right? And because we need our standard format of submission, but you have a relationship and you've agreed that you have a conversation in addition to that. It's not that alone.
Okay, great. All right, great, thank you.
And then as far as the procedure of contacting someone in a company, not association, do we switch from email to phone calls and other ways to contact? Yes, ha, ha, ha. I don't know who put yes, ha, ha, but, my way of doing things as a tenacious, persistent salesperson, selling myself or selling other products in my world, however I got to get into the door is what I'm going to do. If that's an email or a LinkedIn introduction, if that's a referral, again, the way in varies, the ask also varies. And so if you're going to go in and ask for air, if you're going to ask for an interview, if you're going to ask for just a conversation about an upcoming event, if you're going to go in and ask about a recent article that you found online that maybe they're a part of or they were mentioned in or what have you, whatever that looks like, the way in is the way in, and there really is no one way. So if you love the phone, pick up the phone. If you love voicemail, leave voicemails. If you love email, use email. At the end of the day, you just got to get in and get the conversation, however that has to happen. And don't forget, now, we don't want mass mailing of massive postcard campaigns and bulk mail, not the point. But remember, the least populated place right now is people's mailboxes. So don't forget, you can send a letter with a Post-it note and says, let's get on a conversation. You can send a postcard specifically to a contact with relevant information on it to get their attention and just get them to get a conversation with you. But just don't undervalue or underestimate the power of the mailbox, because nobody gets mail anymore. So, except for bills. So
Okay.
Use that in a strategic, intentional way.
Right. Gotcha.
Cool. Does that answer
Yes.
the question?
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. You're very welcome. Stephana. I was focused on the disease ways of the individual. Talk to me.
Okay. So this is what I have right now. I've distilled what we've talked about in our sessions.
Yep.
The name that I came up with, so I've got Sapphire Monkey and then just on this piece here, you were talking about the mid-level management. So we help mid-level management leaders effectively evaluate data so that they can easily detect and effectively handle the good and bad situations within their group organization. Feeling like the monkey in the middle, you know that game, Monkey in the Middle? So that's the big thing on the air conversation we had. I know, I'm starting to still figure this out. But the purpose, the industry, because I have Nike in my back pocket, basically, Jaguar Land Rover, Wacom tablets, and a few other big companies, but I don't know what that industry niche would be. So do I put that out there or just focus on, I really am focused on that mid-level leadership, the person that's squashed in between the guys that are saying, you've got to get this done. And then they're trying to implement, and the monkey in the middle. But I want to do it in a positive way because I love, I have Sapphire Monkey. It's a company I've had for years, and it was a marketing branding company that I did. So I thought, oh my God, I could, I don't know, better than Lead Synth, it's kind of like.
Yes. Yeah. Sapphire Monkey reminds me of when Google came out. Nobody knew what Google was, and now Google is like a verb.
Yeah, exactly.
So Sapphire, either you have to have a really hard-hitting tagline that says what you do. Sapphire Monkey doesn't tell me that you're an expert in leadership.
That's not the point. So when I was thinking to go totally the other way and make it fun branding, like the energy that I bring, with this whole idea of, especially with my speaking points is all of this data, the evaluation, all of these pulse surveys that they do all the time. They pay scads of money, like tune of 6 and 7 figures for surveys, evaluations, and they don't know what to do with this stuff.
Right.
But they're sandwiched in between, like, I've got to, how do I distill this? How do I figure this out?
They just gave me this data, and I have these people that are calling in sick and using their cell phones at work. What the hell am I supposed to do with the stuff in the middle? So I mean, it makes total sense. As far as what industry, I think when we talked about this last time, Stephana, I think we have to figure out where that crossover is for you in experience and insight and desire. If it's not passion, it's got to be something that you have some insights on, and you actually have a desire to work with that kind of personality. So I know on our call, I tossed out, Land Rover and that, and you were like, no, not car dealership.
Well,
so
yeah, I don't want to be in auto industry
there.
But because I could, right in my backyard, go to these companies, would I focus on, so I get the reason I would have the niche so that I would focus. So let's say, for example, I just do all the construction companies. Yeah. So I know how to pick up the phone and call construction companies all over the place, all over the world. Wouldn't matter. I just call those construction companies. So potentially I could do that, but I already have lines into Nike and JLR, and would I just go ahead and but get my one sheet and get all that stuff and not. Okay.
Yeah, your solution is the same regardless of, and construction companies, I would have I wouldn't believe, and you can confirm or deny this, I don't believe that they're doing surveys. I don't believe you need to go for companies who are actually buying Pulse surveys and figure out. So if you can go to Pulse and maybe say, maybe there's a way you can figure out who's aligned with them. What companies do they serve? Do they have a client list on their website? Sorry for any Latin background noise.
I will find out. I will get all that data.
Because I think if you even did a little image searching, or who's associated with Pulse, client list that they've served in the past, that's your client list right there. That's your target market, is anyone who is actively involved in surveys. Hang on just a I have somebody vacuuming, so sorry about that. It was getting really loud. Yeah, who is, and then again, competitor, who is the competitor to Pulse? Who else is doing surveys? You know, what other company is an aggregator of these surveys? And then who are they associated with? Who do they serve? Who are their client list? Because again, you just need to find the people who are doing the surveys. That's your target market, whether it's tech or it's construction or whatever. You need to find people who are, number one, invested in figuring out what their culture looks like, surveys, engagement, all that kind of good stuff. And then you've got to go find those companies who are big enough and just make it, you know, kind of as a standard, what's the size of company that might be best for you? So then you can reverse engineer that, and you can, and I would even, you know what I would do? I would probably even call Pulse and say, what association meetings and what conferences do you go to? Where do you show up in the world to get clients? And then go be with them. And then just go be in their marketplace. Go, you know, if there's a conference coming up, go to it, especially if it's in your backyard, and just go hobnob with the people in the room. Because if they're presenting, they've already deemed that those people are their clients, and you're an adjunct to what they're doing. Now, there may even at some point be a conversation with you in Pulse if they aren't already doing it themselves. I don't know if they offer services, consulting services, to help their clients make sense of the data they're providing, but you could be a referral source possibly, or an affiliate to them. And I don't know. These are just questions you got to ask to go, how do I align with what's already going on? And then do the same thing with their competitors. Cool.
Awesome. Yes. Totally awesome. My Bina.
Now so just warning, it feels exciting, but you could get shut down in a heartbeat. So you got to have the backup plan. What's the backup plan?
Oh, I already have it. Ocean. No. Yeah,
how many companies like Pulse can you find on a list, and start with one and work your way down? Have those strategic conversations with Pulse or someone. LinkedIn, figure out who's connected to them. Go to Land Rover and ask them, who do you work with at Pulse? Who could you introduce me to? You know, if you've got an in, and if you've got an in at Nike, girlfriend, hello. We have someone else in the room that's trying to get into Nike too, if you want to help. So,
do my best.
So yeah, network amongst yourselves. That's up to you. You got access to
that was super helpful. Thank you. As usual.
Yeah. Yep. All right. And have a schedule. Let me back up. Okay. I found several conferences okay. Lisette, it's you, dear.
Yes. And I've already sent a message to Stephana.
Oh, cool.
When I heard Nike. So hopefully we can collaborate, strategize, and get us both in there.
Isn't it amazing? Just another example of once you set your sight on something. Now, had you a week ago, would you have heard her talk about Nike, and would you have cared?
Neither.
Right.
Neither. So, and the article was on mid-level management and trying to get women in it. So it's also so zen.
And again, not to distract from your question, but I just want to make a point for everybody else on the call who's still listening. A lot of people are off camera now, so I don't know who's still with me or not. But but the bottom line is, when you call it out, when we talk about a top 25 list, when we talk about a top 50 list, that means you have called it out and you are after them. Anything that comes across your radar now will cross those crosshairs, and you will then see it as an opportunity. But if you continue to say corporate is my market and give no specificity as to who in corporate or what it looks like, you will continue to go, I don't have leads. I don't know where to find leads. I don't know who to call. I don't know what to do. And you'll continue to throw your arms up and go, I can't find any leads. I can't find any opportunities. And David and I will always say that's crap. So anyway, back to you, Lisette. It's all you.
Yeah, I just want to put Morgan Stanley out there too for anybody who knows anybody there. Okay, so my question is, so when we're having conversations with association, and you got into this a little bit about meeting planners, conference organizers, not necessarily management companies, but we've actually got the organizer. There's definitely different verbiage on the sort of the pain points. They may have different goals for their outcomes than working with a company. So I'm kind of looking for the difference in the verbiage and reaching out.
Say that again. So you're looking for the difference in verbiage between An association management, not association.
The association versus corporate. I'm either talking to someone at a corporation saying, tell me a little bit about, what you're struggling with, your pain, blah, blah. Obviously with the association, if they're putting on if it's a conference, they may have different outcome desires. So sort of how to word that to get to that.
Ask. So I don't mean to simplify it. I'm not trying to be cute here. So if you're on the phone with an association, so I sent you last night the needs discovery list of questions. Did you get that?
Mm-mm. Oh, via email?
Maybe I sent it to somebody else. I think I might. So I'll make sure
send it to me. Yeah.
So before the end of the day, I'll get that out to you.
Okay.
And we have some in the modules as well. This is just a more comprehensive list that I've put together over time that comes from the questioning books that I talked about on one of the last sessions that are in the Facebook group. So, when you're at the end of the day, it isn't the words you use, it's the intention that you are after when you use the words you choose. So if you're after knowing what their problems are in context of your employees and your daily work environment, tell me a little bit about what are some of the things you're struggling with. And if they can't answer or they don't have an immediate answer, you can say, when I work with my clients, what we have found is that found. A lot of people have felt really frustrated by the fact that it's a revolving door of turnover. And what we found is that when we address X, Y, and Z, we dramatically decrease that. I'm curious, is that something that you're experiencing? Oh my gosh, yes, it is. Well, tell me more about that. And it's just literally, you're just digging into the problem, whether it's now as an association meeting, a meeting planner wants a stellar meeting, wants butts and seats, wants full engagement, and wants to be the hero to their bosses that they put on a fantastic meeting. But at the end of the day, you've got that level of needs just to make sure that you're accommodating, that you're easy to work with, that, what is it? And then again, your questions are, who's in your audience? What's the avatar around them? How many do you have show up? What do your breakout sessions look like? What's the theme of the meeting? Overall, as an association, what are you trying to accomplish for your members? What are the biggest pain points that your members have brought to you? What other initiatives are you under in order to serve those needs? I mean, you're asking about the meeting itself, and then you're also asking about what in their association over the course of 12 months time as an association serving this group of businesses, what is most pervasive for them? What are you doing about it? And can I be a resource and one of those people that can join forces with you to help them? With a corporation, you're just cutting out the meeting bit. Now, you still need to know the theme of the meeting. You still need to know how many people are going to be there and what are your overall goals, because corporations have off-site meetings, they have leadership meetings, they have annual meetings. And so with this, who's going to be there? What do you want to accomplish? What's the theme? What have you done in the past? And more importantly, what are you trying to change within the organization that's pervasive and crucial that I might be a resource for? So all of that is what you're after, but then the line of questioning, again, if you're positioning yourself as a consultant, you're saying, look, granted, there's a meeting and I get that and this is all the information I need, but what I really want to talk about is what you just said about revolving door of turnover. How long has that been a problem? And what have you done in the past to fix it? How did that work out? How did you know it didn't work? How did you know it worked? I mean, it's just, and again, you're following the bunny trail of figuring out what is still amiss and why are they having this problem still? Because if they had a solution, they'd already fixed it. So that means there's a problem and you might be a resource for it. So in your context around sexual harassment or this diversity or whatever, we haven't exactly decided specifically. We're still working on that specific niche, but it's very pervasive right now and it's very high awareness right now. And so what are you doing as a company? Are you continuing to hide your head in the sand, or is this something that you have as an initiative for 2018? So it's a line of questioning that just gets at where are they now? Where do they want to be? Why aren't they there? And what have they done so far to fix it?
That's exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah. In those words.
In those words.
I like
so just tell me. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's keeping you from getting there? And why haven't you fixed it yet? Just tell me that.
yeah, exactly. 157. I'm just gonna write that down and just keep it going.
Just easy peasy. Right. Does that answer the question that you asked though? Does that give you? Okay.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
All right. Lisette News, wondering how to position combos with meeting pledge. So we get that, okay. Wondering how to position combos with meeting pledge. Got that. That's right. Set Google alerts for those two. Yes. All right. Doug, are you still on? You still with us?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Everybody went to like black screens. I can't see your smiling faces. When researching associations, we're finding speaker applications are being required regardless of a phone conversation. Do you recommend filling them out without a conversation? When you say they're required regardless of a conversation, how do you know that? Is that what the website's telling you?
Well, the website or the email direct you to fill out the speaker application form. That's their procedure. So how do you get around that and request a conversation, or do you fill that out and then go for a conversation, or what do you recommend?
I wouldn't fill it out without a conversation because they have no context. You have no context of what they're up to be able to adequately propose a solution. So if the email says, hey, go fill out the form, and you've said, hey, you can just say, well, I would love to do that. I realize that's probably a part of your process. But before I have a conversation, I really want to get a good feel for what your meeting is about, the theme, You might not put all those details, but I need to find out more information in order to be the best possible resource for you.
Okay.
Now, I'll be honest, some of them, they do. They're like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you. And I, 2, 3, 4 emails in, and they're still not willing to talk to me. And they're convinced that I just have to fill out the form. The problem with that is chances are it's going to be low pay or no pay if it's just a form. So you might in your email conversations want to find out, are you providing honorariums? Are you providing compensation for your speakers? And chances are they're going to say no, because if they're not interested in a viable solution and talking about that, I got to question whether or not they're a real provider I want to work with. So, if you want to go and do that and give it a shot and try the conversation on the back, I'm betting it won't be very effective. So I'm trying to save you some time. But again, until you don't know, right? So I have filled out a few RFPs and been able to get paid, but not often. It's been maybe less than one handful. So, and it took a lot of negotiation and usually some sort of negotiated fee, not my full fee. So it's not a great way to go about doing it. But I think you'd be better off to call an organization to work with them directly before you spend a bunch of time with a no pay, low pay gig.
Right. So can you tell me again the verbiage that you said for the redirect? So I'm happy. I understand that filling out the form is part of your procedure, but for me to really know if I can be of value, I need to understand what you're trying to accomplish. What else did you say?
It's so funny because I say this stuff. I say this stuff and I never know what I say. So it's on the recording.
Okay.
The general idea is, while I realize that there's a process in place, I'm not, I definitely want to comply with what you've got as a process, but my objective really is to find out more about the meeting so I can be the best possible resource for you.
Yeah.
And to you, your organization, and to your members. Would you hop on a quick 5 or 10 minute call? You guys are good at asking for phone conversations. That's all you're asking for.
Right.
So
right.
Hop on a quick call so I can find out a little bit more and make the best possible proposal and submission.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Rad and Lisette are saying we need to make script kits. That's not all that bad of an idea. All right, Kerri. Hi, Kerri. Are you still there? You are.
I had to unmute myself, and let's see if I can.
No worries. Great to have you on the call. This is your first call, right?
This is my first call. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm to your questions here. Is my niche or topic strategy and shareholder value, enterprise value? So the strategy implementation equals shareholder value and enterprise value. That is what you do. What does strategy plus implementation equal shareholder value produce?
Increases the value of the company, bottom line. I'm not talking about revenue, I'm talking about the value of the company. Because if we have a clear strategy and then we have a game plan of what we need to do throughout the organization, what does that deliver, not just to the corporate bottom line, but to the shareholders, the stakeholders in the company? And I'm looking at the middle market.
Okay. And are these companies that are trying to sell and migrate out of business, or are they thriving and growing? What is the value of value? That makes sense.
Well, when I spoke with Buddy up front, he was the last nail in the coffin of me trying to speak on exit planning to business owners because they don't want to hear it, never mind pay for it.
Gotcha. So
so now we're looking at the strategy and implementation for value growth of an enterprise, period. Just value growth is where we're at.
So value growth. So again, the reason I'm asking this question is because when we have to convey this to a prospective, succession planning essentially is what we're talking about here. And you're right. It's kind of like, I need to lose weight, but I don't have any health issues right now. I need to prevent that which is coming in the future. But because it's not here, I'm not going to pay attention to it now. I'm going to wait till later. Succession planning is a lot like that. We aren't ready to get out of business yet, but they don't realize there's a whole row to hoe to make sure that you are of value when it's time to sell, or else you won't be selling. You'll be going out of business and going bankrupt, or worse, just going out of business and your legacy is gone. So but we need to create a case for that. I'd like to maybe dive into that a little deeper with you, Kerri, in a one-to-one, because I think it deserves a deeper conversation.
Great.
And getting some formatting around what does that look like for outcomes now for a company. And more importantly, and this you can be thinking on this before our call, when they aren't fully valued, their valuation is not where it needs to be. If you walked in today and said, I want to sell your company, you don't have enough value to sell. What's happening in the company at that point? What are some symptoms and some signs that they're nowhere near being ready to sell or succeed? And I don't mean success as in like success. I mean, they're not ready to get out of the game.
And there's a litany. That's a whole big long list of the flags, the issues, the challenges, the risks.
Awesome. If you've got a list, then we've got a lot to work with. So that's great. We're going to pick, a short list, and we're going to say, okay, these are the things that are going on in your company, and these are the symptoms you're feeling. And you, Kerri, you solve those things. And then once you get in, you talk about succession. Does that make sense?
Okay. No, it's a sequence, I think, that you're talking about that I hadn't been thinking that way. So that's good.
Gotcha. And then package what they need in the format they want. How and what does that look like in the middle market? So what that looks like is much of what we're talking about right now. So when you go into a doctor's office and you have symptoms, the doctor may know what you're suffering from just looking at you. You're pale, you've been nauseous, you got hives or you got bumps on your skin, whatever. But he's going to ask you a battery of questions and do a battery of tests to figure it out. And so what he's looking for is symptoms. He's looking for those things that make you sick with the disease he thinks you have, right? So what it looks like in the marketplace is you're the same thing. You're the doctor, and you're going into the company and you're looking for those symptoms and you're highlighting them to them. And you're asking, do you have bumps on your skin? Yes, I do. Do you have itching? Do you have a sore throat? Do you have congestion in your face? And you're asking those things. And so when you talk about the package they need, you're going to describe what you do in context to the symptoms they're feeling so they can see themselves in the story that you're starting to construct. So what they need is what you actually offer, which is the succession planning and the strategy and the implementation to bring the company value up. But that's not a need they see right out of the gate. What they see is, we've got to get these bumps off our skin. We've got to get this congested nose taken care of. So in the corporate market, it might be turnover, it might be engagement, it might be talent development. It could be a lot of different things that all impede on the value of that company, but they don't see it as a value problem. They see it as a symptom at a much lower level in the daily grind. So what we have to do is tell a story that's specific to those symptoms, so they can go, oh, I've got that. That's what I've got. Yes. And then you can then approach that with a solution that you say, well, here's how I'm going to alleviate it, and here's what you're going to get at the end of it.
Got it. Okay, I can work on that.
Awesome. And then first drafts, titles. So these are titles for talks, is that right?
Right, right.
This from being the best of getting control. Do you want to lead or manage? Given, let's put a pin in this one, Kerri, because I want to dive into that list of pervasive issues that you have, and let's toss some of those around.
It seems like I'm premature with this list based on what you just said.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet, and I think we can come up with something a little more hard hitting and specific and relevant for them. So let's pin that for now.
Great.
Awesome. Great to have you here. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
All right, Dave and Teresa, cash throat. What is this? Red? Caw throwdown? Caw throw it down. All right, Roger. Can you talk about the value of working with Vistage? David is not hot on them, and I have found that also to be the case. Well, Roger, I got a question back for you. If you haven't found them to be good to work with, why does it matter what I think? Are you here, Roger? Did he pop off? Roger? Anyone? Bueller? Oh, he asked that earlier. Is he still here? Okay. Well, he'll hear it for the recording, and I'll just give you my my 2 cents, which isn't much because I've never worked with Vistage. I have never really pursued that. I used to serve entrepreneurs, but that wasn't the market that I wanted to go to. So from a standpoint of exposure, once you're in Vistage, I have heard of consultants and coaches doing well within Vistage. However, again, I don't have any personal firsthand experience, so I can't speak from that. And I would just maybe throw that question back on you, Roger. If you found it not to be fruitful, I wouldn't do it. I mean, no sense in doing it. Even if I did think it was the best thing since sliced bread, if you haven't been able to leverage it or it hasn't worked out, maybe it's not something to do. If I had worked with it and had some insight for you that would shift your perspective, maybe that would be a conversation. Unfortunately, I don't. I do have a couple of people that have worked with Vistage. I'll be happy to connect you, and maybe you can have a conversation with them and they'll know a little bit more than I do. I know of the organization. I've been to one meeting and I've never really leveraged that as a lead generator. So there's that. All right, Randy, being new, what does it mean when a speaker on a bureau website notes it as varies or negotiable? How do you compare to someone who is shown that way? So Randy, what you're asking about is when they say negotiable, how do you compete with that? Is that what you're asking? Randy? Anyone? Randy? Randy's left us too. Is that right? Okay. So for the sake of the recording, I have to say, bye, Selena. How do you compare to someone who is shown that way? You know, I think from the standpoint of comparing your fees to your competitive analysis of what you find out in the marketplace, it's a barometer, but it's not a measurement. Does that make sense? When I say that, I mean that it's an estimator. It's kind of it's like, yeah, what are they saying is their range? But I got to tell you guys, in my experience, the speakers that I know, they say they charge 10 grand, and they say they charge 7, and they're taking on a consistent basis 3 and 5. So every instance is different, and everyone has their won't wake up, won't get out of bed number. Everybody has their gets it most of the time, and then their top number they always ask for. I think it's an estimator to, if it's negotiable, that they cave on their price. That's what that tells me, is they're willing to negotiate based on getting on stage. If that's a sustainable business model, which it isn't, that you want to have, go for it. But I wouldn't say that you need to be negotiating, if that's your question. I wouldn't say that you should cave on your prices. I think you should be strategic in any negotiation you should do. And if you're going to state prices, which I never recommend putting on your website, if you're on an eSpeakers or on another directory, fine, you got to put a range, that's fine. Don't put negotiable, because if you want to be negotiable, they'll undercut you every time. So if you just have your pricing, have fee integrity, stick with it, know your limits, know your bottom line and your top line, and stay within that range. And I would never announce to someone that you negotiate. You let that be a part of the conversation, and negotiate up. Like, negotiate for consulting and coaching and training. Negotiate up. Everybody thinks that when they have to negotiate, they got to negotiate down. No, you talk to your client about going deeper in the organization and being a real advisor and a real resource for long-term change and transformation. And they're going to pay for that as an investment in their own company. So it's not a matter of negotiating down and I'll work for peanuts. I mean, again, it drives me crazy that speakers do that, but they do. And I would use it as a at arm's length barometer, but it's not a measurement, and you don't need to negotiate, nor do you need to announce that on any website anywhere. So that's my take on that. Do David and Teresa recommend always subscribing to the upgrade in LinkedIn? No, not necessarily. There's a lot of search capability on LinkedIn without the Sales Navigator, especially if you're using a CRM outside of LinkedIn. You can add those leads and work them in the CRM that you have. Sales Navigator gives you a little more specificity over geography and some other corporate titles and years at the business and things like that. But really, at the end of the day, if you have a connection, if you have a network, that's what you should be working. Look at the geography, look at where you're at, and go after those engagements or those people that you're connected to, because that's really where the power of LinkedIn is that second and third level connection. And who do you know who can refer you to the person that you want to know? And where does that network play? And how are you communicating with your network and staying in contact with them? So no, Sales Navigator is not necessary. If you have budget and want to spend $60 to $79, I think, a month for Sales Navigator, you certainly can, but it's not recommended, nor do I think you have to have it. Yes, Tweet, I do. And let's see here, and I'll send you a link. And then I have a follow-up question. Our Nike conversation today, please, Patricia. Hi, Patricia.
Great and happy day, Teresa. Thank you. It is always such a pleasure. They were saying you can throw it down, and I agree. You throw it down, baby. You are amazing. It's like watching a master at its best, at its finest. So,
you guys are. I'm blushing a little. Stop it.
Thank you. So, Teresa, I'm still working on my identity. And as you know, transformational leader mindset. And I've loved some of the comments that you've put on Facebook about how companies don't buy mindset. They buy the result that the training on mindset gives. So to the conversation about Nike today and Nike having funding for women's empowerment. So I'm learning this new language, which seems like it's a totally different language in this conversation, of course, right? So in this, the empowerment, when you speak about Nike has a budget or now has X amount of dollars for empowerment, is that right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about budget. I don't know what that looks like. This was a news report that came across that said we are now making an initiative, and we've made a public announcement that this is an initiative we're entering into. So one can only assume that they have budget, but I don't know that as a matter of fact. They are going to be publicly, and I think probably transparently, doing more in the area of hiring more women and hiring more minorities. That was what the report was, and that's what that article is about.
Thank you. I came in right as you were speaking about that. So for someone like myself who before has been about women's empowerment and mindset and transformation, and now we're still finding that red bird, looking for what my red bird looks like. Yep. So helping connect the dots, Teresa, seeing that that's an opening of sorts, then that allows for someone like myself to then, what I'm hearing you say is just get really clear on what I stand for as it
relates to how it could benefit their new stance and posture. Am I
Absolutely. So
here?
This is a great segue to why I wanted to talk about, at the top of the call is every resource, all of these trade publications, whatever, and this is another benefit of picking an industry, is that you can actually hang out with that industry and be a student of the game. Thanks, Charles. Bye. Thank you very much. I think what is so important is that, number one, it's a relevant event. So it's a trigger event. Of something they have publicly put in the marketplace, and you're responding in kind to that. You're saying, look, I see that you have this new initiative, and I have some real power or some real value to bring to possibly helping you or helping the organization really seize this new initiative and make the most of it. I don't know if I can be a resource, but I sure would love a conversation to find out. So it's a relevant event. It's not a guessing. It's not a, digging in the well and hoping you find some water. That this is an initiative for that particular company. An HR executive, which, by the way, guys, subscribe to these things. They come in print and digital, and it's amazing. It's amazing the insight and intel you get out of just hanging out with your target market. So this happens to be an HR executive magazine, right? It's free. I didn't pay for it. They just send me the print edition and I get the digital one. And this one has an article that I sent, I think it was to Lisette last night. Oh, look at here. Here's a culture clash. That's interesting. Talent management. I wonder. So I'm going back to this, a new era for HR. Let's get inside their brains and talk about that. I'm trying to find this article, guys. Hang on. It was on sexual harassment, and the new initiatives around empowering women and making this more a regular conversation. So again, if you are a part of women's issues, I can't find the article. I think I scanned it from the digital version for you, Lisette. Oh, it was the newsletter that came in the email. That's what I scanned for you, Lisette. So again, it's not so much about, it is about Nike. I mean, go seize that opportunity, figure out who to talk to, go get in and get some introductions, that kind of thing. But it's not just Nike. I mean, that's just one we bubbled to the top for you guys to kind of just demonstrate that these trigger events and these things that are going on. And if I might be really candid, and I kind of said this in a post in our Momentum group, quit hanging out with other coaches and speakers and start hanging out with your target market. Actually start reading these. I mean, every LinkedIn connection I get from another coach, I turn it down. I don't want to be networked with other coaches. I want to be networked with people who can hire me. And that target market is not coaches. Those are people that just keep ruminating in the same information over and over and over and keep perpetuating this. We got to keep learning. We got to keep learning. No, what you got to do is get into the mind of the people you want to serve, figure out what makes them tick, be a student of the game, and go make connections with these organizations. Nike, Adidas, I mean, pick a shoe company, pick a manufacturer, pick whoever you want, but know their game. And you as a women's empowerment, or maybe it's women in leadership, you're going to go look and figure out where can you be the best value for them? Where is it that given whatever trigger event or whatever you're reading and nuances that you see in a magazine, and the relevancy is, did you see the article in the HR Executive magazine? Did you hear the report on NBC? I did, and I'm responding because it sounds like you guys might have a need, and I'd love to know if I might be a resource. I can see in the HR world that this is becoming a huge issue. I actually have a resource, and I am a resource for that. Maybe we can have a conversation of what that might look like if your organization is looking to put this as an initiative in 2018. So the relevancy is what is key. It isn't the company. It isn't the one company or another company. It's where in the world are things going on. It's I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, Inc. magazine, Fortune 500, HR magazine. I have emails coming in from meetingplanners.net. I subscribe to meeting planner magazines because I want to know what's going on and where can I respond in real time to issues that are being talked about in the marketplace. And it's really, really, it's really, really important that we hang out with the people that we know we can serve, not the people who we're competing with. And I think that's a really big distinction, that with the internet, it's so easy to get into these groups and hang out in Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups of colleagues. Get out of there, get into the rooms of the people that you can serve, and listen to those conversations. And then of course, respond in kind with your value. So with you, Patricia, with your, you know, if it's women's empowerment, I think if we couch that in the example of Nike, that has everything to do with, they want to hire more women. They want to promote more women to leadership, but I'm betting a good number of those women are not ready for leadership. I bet you could help with that.
Bam. If you had a mic right now, you could drop it, Teresa.
I do have a mic and it's recording for the benefit of all. So
thank you. Okay, this is getting clearer and clearer and clearer. So just like the relevancy this weekend, finding out that someone close to me is with a company that has just received $1 million grant specifically for education because they educate their employees and they're growing at such a quick pace. So it's $1 million educational fund. And so in that, what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is simply speaking with whomever it is that makes decisions there and say, I understand that you have this fund. I am all about education. What are the things that you're facing that you would like the education? Is that correct?
Well, I think it's less about the fund and it's more about what the fund has been apportioned to fix.
Mm-hmm. And it's been given because they do education and nothing necessarily to fix, to my knowledge right now, simply as a grant because they educate their people. They had someone like Shawn, you know who I'm speaking about. And they do things like that. And what I'm seeing in that, it could even be culture. So finding out more now about what it is that is the trigger or the problem or the culture or the issue. And just for the fact that I know that they have funds and a budget for that, again, okay, so the relevance is not so much around the fund. It's just simply, what can I do to serve you? Where are you?
Yes.
Right?
The fact that you know that there's money is an ace in the hole. You kind of know that it's there. So when they come back, they go, oh, we don't have budget. Mm-hmm. You go, yeah, baloney. Mm-hmm. You know, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend you go and get in their face and call them on it. But because if they're saying they don't have budget, we haven't done a good job. You haven't done a good job of demonstrating the value for them to spend that budget on you. So it's still on you to prove. What it really says, though, is where in the organization, and again, nothing happens outside of a conversation. You have to have a conversation. And once you have that conversation, it's a dig for the gold. It's where is that nugget that I can polish up and create a diamond ring for them out of, you know, where is it that I can make something that isn't running well work better, that is a pervasive, painful problem that they would invest in fixing. Mm-hmm. And so you don't know without a conversation. You could do some research and go into that conversation very prepared. You know, in doing some research about your company, I see X, Y, and Z. I see last year you produced a report that reported these results. How are you doing since then? What's going on in the company now? And and again, 90% of the effort is just getting that conversation. So keep in mind, from ground zero to conversation doesn't happen overnight. It takes work. I wish there were an easier way. There isn't. It just is persistence and reaching out with value and inviting to a conversation. So, but once you get into that conversation, we have all sorts of insight and tactics in order to help you navigate that discovery, so you can then put the pieces together and co-create a solution for them that they're willing to invest in and you're willing to get paid for.
Great. This is brilliant. And you are too. Thank you.
You're too good to me. Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate it. My head is growing just a little bit, so I'll try to shrink it down a little.
No. Thank you again.
All right. Well, guys, we are about an hour and a half. We're at 2.5 hours marathon today. We had 11 questions, so a lot more than we normally get. We are recorded for your delight and replay when you need it. And any last closing, quick 5 seconds or less before we close her down? Nothing. All right, guys. Thank you for your participation and your engagement. Love you all. Have a great afternoon. And you know where to find us. See ya.